بفضلك وكرمك علمي وعملي. أما بعد. So yesterday in the khutbah, I suppose most of you were here in the khutbah yesterday. So does anybody remember what we talked about?
Attention. What your actions are.
We talked about
intentions, the niyyah behind your actions.
Yeah. But what was the overall theme? The overall theme. What did we talk about?
To conduct your way that is pleasing to Allah.
We began our khutbah with one ayat. Does anybody remember the ayat that I read yesterday? ما خلقت
الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون.
ما
He
خلقت
barely created men and jinn for worship. Ya'budun.
So actually, this whole series that I developed this series several years ago, and it has been on my mind since I became a Muslim back in the 70s, because after accepting Islam and then seeing how we Muslims are, there's a disconnect, right? What we should be and what we, like in management, they say, the as is and to be. So you do an analysis of the as is, what is our state of affairs at the present moment, and to be, what we aspire to become, and what we actually should be. And of course, what we should become is what we were. So the template is there, and the model has been developed, and it was demonstrated to us by Rasulullah and his companions, and the Qurun al-Ula. And centuries down the line, we got totally disconnected from just about everything that we need to be connected to. And so there's various dimensions of human health that was a matter of concern to me and should be to every human being. And these dimensions, we can break them down into basically 6 dimensions. One, first and foremost, is what we call spiritual health. So spiritual health, that's the driver of the whole agenda and the whole program. And then we have physical health. There's a ruh, and then there's a body to carry the ruh, the vehicle. And then there's intellect, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, ميز الإنسان من بقية الحيوان how? بالعقل. Right? حيوان ناطق. What do they say? حيوان ناطق. It's kind of a gross definition, but nevertheless. So we have intellect. So intellectual health. This is important. Emotions also, shu'ur, awatif. They play a great role in the makeup of the human being. And so to have healthy awatif and shu'ur, as-sihha al-nafsaniyya, which is now generally the mawdu' which we would call psychology, or we call it in Arabic ilm al-nafs, and it's not a new science. Our ulama and Islam have been talking about it for centuries. The Quran, in fact, talks about it. The Sunnah talks about it. So we have that dimension as well. Sihha nafsaniyya, emotional health. And that's the micro of the human being. His spiritual being, his physical being, which is the physical vehicle, which his soul is transported about and remains housed within during his worldly sojourn while he's here in the world. His mental state, his emotional state. So these are all within the human being. Now moving out with relationships with others, the health that is required in relationships, healthy relationships. So we have sihha ijtima'iyya, healthy relationships, so social health. And then if we go, to the entire environment that we live in, then we have environmental health, as-sihha al-bi'iyya, if you will. And so basically what we did was develop a series of workshops that would give us some hands-on, doable things to try and get us to reconnect with these dimensions and to bring us back into some sort of equilibrium, or at least get us moving in that direction. And so this series of workshops, actually, for example, this, to develop ourselves spiritually is a lifelong occupation, actually. It's not like a day or two or an hour or two. We're not going to watch a PowerPoint, presentation and, there we are, we've reached. When I first came to Pakistan from Saudi Arabia, I was sent to Pakistan as a teacher. So when I got to Pakistan, and then I noticed in the masjid the Quranic teacher was also, besides Quran, he was teaching them, certain fundamentals in religion, and they have a thing called Iman, or you probably would have read that, Iman, Mujmal, Iman, Mufassal, which is a very powerful, small statements, Amantu billahi kama huwa bi asma'i wa sifatihi, and so anyway, so I asked the teacher, I said, what do you teach here? What is this? He says, I'm teaching the students Iman. Okay. And so how long, what kind of a course, how long? He said, actually, it's a very straightforward thing. If a student is, who's got a reasonable amount of intelligence and he has a reasonable capacity to memorize, in a day or two, he'll learn that. Wow. Iman, they learn in a day or two. So I'm a new guy here. I mean, I'm a new Muslim. I don't know that much about it, but didn't Rasulullah just teach Iman in Makkah for 13 years? And he was the best of teachers, and he had the best of students. And yet this learning of Iman, and it continued throughout the prophetic mission. So it was a sum total of 23 years, particularly in the Meccan period, it was basically learning Iman. And that's why we see, if those who were present yesterday, was anybody present yesterday in the evening in Davis? Because actually it's a whole series, so if you would have been present yesterday, then, we're actually building on that. But so ideally you would have wanted to go through the whole series, but anyway, we don't have that luxury in terms of time. So, Rasulullah taught Iman, and when Iman was built, we talked about the tree, the Iman, the Kalim al-Tayyibah, and we talked about that the whole deen, which is built up in the individual, in the family, in the society, it's like a tree. Daraballahu mathalan kalimatan tayyibah, and we talked about that ayat. We talked about it depicts a tree which sort of, depicts the entirety of deen, and how as a tree grows from the roots up and ultimately it branches out and it gives fruit. And those fruit are the actions of a healthy tree. And the health of that tree, the simile is of the healthy Iman within the heart, this kalima being alive in the heart of a mu'min. He's like a tree producing beautiful fruits. So it's not a seasonal thing, it's continuously. And as we link that to the khutbah yesterday, as we said, every action that the human being is doing 24 hours a day, a human being is a factory of action. It starts with his heart, in the mind, and then it translates on the body, on the limbs, with the eyes, with the ears, with the tongue, right, etc. So if that kalima and that iman and that kalima is really rooted into the heart, then the actions, are synced with that iman. And so when that situation takes place, then Sharia is not only applicable, it is going to be the only course of action that the person of Iman would want to take. And therefore we talked about La ikraha fi din. There's not a compulsion to accept Islam in the first place. And also this concept we're going to impose Sharia on people, that's not how it works. Sharia came in terms of the difficult, the difficult injunctions which were against the social practices, like leaving the drinking of intoxicants, like leaving fornication, like leaving usury and interest. These were social norms that required strong iman to leave, just like we have in the world today. You know, for people to leave their digital garbage, you know, it's not easy to do. It's like detoxing. It's like you know, getting off of heroin. Really, right? So it requires a very high level of iman, right, to do these things. And so that's the organic system of the prophetic tradition, to build the iman under divine guidance, of course. To build the iman, when iman is built, when the injunction comes, a woman came to Rasulullah and said, Ya Rasulullah, tahirni. Oh Rasulullah, cleanse me. What's your problem? You know, the problem is that she said, I've committed fornication. So Rasulullah Rahman lil Alameen, he tells her, probably you did this, you did that, you did something. You probably didn't really do the actual act. No, I did, and I'm pregnant with it. Now, hudud in Islam are not things that we go around grabbing people, you know, like the concept that people have, or particularly the media would like to project, you know, the Muslims are just, scouring people's houses and dragging people out and chopping their hands and stoning them. Actually, if you look at Sharia, these hudud, which is a very small portion, there's a couple of injunctions that actually have these really stringent punishments, which points to the fact that the sin, which these are punishments for, are extremely vile and vain and destructive, not only to the human being, but to society. However, to impose these punishments, it's nearly impossible. Any kind of shubha, maybe there was a possibility that this was a problem because of their, in other words, a qadi is supposed to, defer these punishments as well. So it's very seldom in actual real Islamic society that these are ever actually, enforced. Particularly, adultery is only enforced when, like in this instance, this woman comes and says, I want to be given the punishment because I want to be cleaned. So Rasulullah now, if a person comes and admits of something of that nature in front of the qadi, and it comes to the qadi, cannot say, okay, we'll give you a presidential, what do they call that? Presidential pardon. No such thing. There's not even a prophetic pardon. This is a had in hududillah. If Fatima bint Muhammad had stolen, then I would have had her hand. It's not how it works. This is for everybody, big, small, rich, poor, whoever. Anyway, so this woman now, we're going to have to deal. So Rasulullah said, okay, go for now because you're pregnant. We're not going to, put the child into he didn't mention it, but he just said, okay, go. After the child is born, then we'll see. Now, Nabi Sallallahu actually, again, his mizaj of Sharia is sitr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sattar. He covers up the sins. Otherwise, if we were all exposed in public for our sins, nobody would look at anybody. We're all, we're all guilty of so many things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala covers them up. And that is the nature of Sharia. That is the nature of Sharia of Islam. It comes from Arhamar Rahimeen, and as demonstrated by Rahman lil Alameen. So it's not something which is, devastating people and harassing people. It is a Rahman and a mercy for people. So Nabi said, go and we'll see after hopefully, Nabi wants that she'll go and make istighfar, tawbah, and we won't see her again, and that'll be the end of the story. But it wasn't. She came back with the child. Said, Ya Rasulullah, tahirni. O Prophet of Allah, cleanse me. And she had this yaqeen that I'm going to stand in front of Allah, and I want my account clean, whatever it takes. And look at this level of iman. It's unbelievable. Now what? So Rasulullah says, okay, go, and now actually this child requires the milk of the mother. So after 2 years, and after the child is weaned, then we'll see. Again, after 2 years, by 2 years, she should have just made istighfar and tawbah. We won't pry into the matter. It's not like, okay, where's that woman? Bring. The idea is, let her do istighfar, tawbah, and we're not concerned with that. She came back with the child after that. The child had a piece of bread and was eating from his own hand. Now, when there is an injunction from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a prophet even has no say in the matter. So he doesn't have any choice in the matter. She has to be stoned. And this is the injunction not only in the Quran, this is the injunction in the Bible, and it has been the divine commandment ever since. Anyway, so she's stoned. Now, among the people who were engaged in that stoning was Khalid bin Walid, Saifullah. And so some of the blood of that woman actually splashed onto him. So he started cursing that woman. Rasulullah got extremely angry. He said, "Uskut ya Khalid, keep quiet. You don't know that this woman has done such a tawbah. Had her tawbah been distributed among the entire population of Medina, lakafathum, it would have been more than sufficient for everyone." So from this, what do we understand? When are people going to actually interact with the orders and injunctions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this nature? When they believe in them. So the nature of Sharia is not to be enforced on people. Sharia is a system living in which, and Sharia is not simply these, as I mentioned, these are a couple of injunctions because of, to deal with maladies and diseases in society, if let loose, like cancer in the body. And look at the society today. So otherwise, Sharia is the whole way of life. Sharia means the broad path, the broad, street. Sharia obviously means the path or the way. So development of Iman is the key to bringing all of these, this beautiful system of life into being. And that's why the Prophets ﷺ began their mission with the call to Iman. And the Sahaba say, "Ta'allamna al-Iman, thumma ta'allamna al-Quran. Fazdadna bil-Qurani imana." We began by learning Iman, and then we learned Quran. And then with Iman and learning Quran, we engaged, our Iman expanded with the nuzul of every ayah. أَيُّكُمْ زَادَتْ هَذِهِ إِيمَانًا فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. Every ayah that they listen to it, وَإِذَا تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُهُ زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. So there has to be an original base of Iman for that interaction to take place. So therefore, developing that Iman is of paramount importance. That's the first step. And so simply we have to take that first step. So the first thing we'll do is we'll start talking about Iman. Okay? So this workshop, by the way, this section, this is generally a 3-day workshop. And 3 days residency. Actually, it's a retreat. We do a 3-day retreat. We just spend the whole, the night and day and the whole, and it's very, it's very powerful when we do it like that. Now, of course, here we don't even have 3 hours, but we'll try and do something of this. So let's start with the beginning. So Iman. So importance of Iman. So I just gave a little kind of hint and a little prelude. Now, I'd like to hear from you people. What do you think is the importance and impact of Iman, both in dunya and in akhirah? Because everybody knows that, yes, if we have Iman, then in akhirah we'll make it. If we don't, we won't. However, is it just in hereafter, or does it have impact in the world as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your Iman is what guides you, or you can say encourage or sustains. How am I going to say?
Purpose of life.
It gives you,
Puts you on the
it
path.
gives you, it gives you, having the iman is what keeps you seeking and growing and becoming closer to Allah, you know.
Motivates you to continue on the path.
Yeah, to keep you on the path. Yeah, to keep
Okay.
you and to keep you engaged into becoming a better Muslim, you know, because it's a kind, like you said, it's a lifetime process. You know?
Absolutely. Anything else? Yeah.
So dunya madratul akhirah. So whatever we do in dunya, it's gonna be, we'll be really
Yeah. So with that, that's the impact it's going to have on akhirah. Okay. Absolutely. What about in dunya? Is there going to be any visible impact? You know, what's the importance in impact? Will it have some impact on our, yeah.
It serves as like a guiding compass in our everyday decisions.
Do we have a microphone also that we can have?
You want a handheld microphone?
Yeah.
for a moment.
Yeah, especially for the ladies, we're going to, you know, so I can hear. I'm a little bit hard of hearing also.
You're gonna have to give me a minute for that.
Huh?
I'll get one in a minute.
Okay,
I
yeah.
can come up
Can
and
you,
say it.
yeah? Yeah.
I said it serves as like a guiding compass for your everyday decisions.
A guiding compass for your everyday, your decision making.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of similar. Absolutely. Okay, what else? Anything? Okay, let's see what the Quran has to say about that. This is very amazing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. So what that means basically what? Certainly the believers have succeeded. And notice that it doesn't say they will succeed. They've already succeeded. They haven't even perhaps even come into the world yet, but they've succeeded. It's a fact. So actually, those who are Arabic speaking and know the language to some extent, they would know that it's قَدْ لِلتَّحْقِيق. And actually, this is يعني لإثبات شدة الوقوع. توقع. In other words, there's no doubt about this happening. You know, like you've got this guy working for you. He's really a crack, you know, troubleshooter. You know, okay, Abdullah, I need this done. Boss, it's done. Well, he hasn't even started yet, but he's so certain, and I'm so certain that his certainty is certain that okay, it's as done. So now that's when my troubleshooter says so. But what about when Rabb al-Alameen says so? There is no doubt about it. So the people of Iman have definitely succeeded, falah. Now, interestingly, falah is not just, as I mentioned yesterday, if you would have remembered, that English is not really a spiritual language, particularly now, modern English. They were a bit more spiritually inclined a century ago or 2 or 3 centuries ago. But the English language doesn't really render itself to explain these terms. So falah basically means, you know, every type of success, you know, being successful in all dimensions where someone would want to be successful in. So it means that basically, they have succeeded in every desirable objective in both in this world and the next. So it's like, you know, basis of ultimate success in both the worlds. So that tells us that Iman, mu'mineen are who? People who have Iman, right? So it means that Iman is the basis of success, ultimate success in everything, both these worlds, this world and in the next. Similarly, on the other side of the coin, juxtaposed, you could say, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. And of course, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, the branches actually of Iman, Amal Salih, Tawasi bil Haq, Tawasi bil Sabr, these are the branches of Iman. Actually, the engine behind the whole process is Iman. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the time, which is a huge qasam, because time, when in respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no beginning. Because Kana Allah wa lam yakun shay'a. He always was, azali. And time is going to go forever. So that is a huge qasam. One is like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the star, or by the this, or by that, or this country, or this place. But he swears by the time. That's probably one of those awesome qasams in the Quran, you know. And so what is the muqsam, you know, alayh? The muqsam alayh, what is he swearing about? The human being is in a state of loss. And we can just talk about this. Usually in these Jummah khutbahs, I just talk about this surah because it's so comprehensive. That man, you know, everything that he's doing and all his efforts that he's making, look at man today. You know, look, Dr. Saab, you know, look at medical, you know, the medical profession. We have more hospitals, more research, more everything medical than we ever had in human history. But how has human health fared as a result of that? Is the human healthier than he was before?
More dialysis places than ever.
The more this is the paradox of the whole thing. You know, the more we have all of this wherewithal, the more we find ourselves in khasara medically. Economics, we have more economics studies, and we have colleges, universities, and economists, and economically, is man better off or what? You've got $1 trillion of real estate, and you got hundreds of thousands of homeless people just below all this trillions of dollars of real estate. A few years ago, a couple of years ago, I had to go. Actually, I've been out of the country, as I said, for decades. You know, I grew up in California, you know, and then I had to go and get my passport in downtown San Francisco. Actually, I had applied online, and they wouldn't give it to me, and I was kind of upset. But we shouldn't be upset with anything, right? Because it's all taqdeer. Relax. You know, Allah has his plan. So the plan was that I needed to see. I had to actually go down and go to the passport office and walk through those streets and see all of those homeless people on the streets of San Francisco. I'm not talking about in the streets of the Congo or some place where, you know, people have this concept that these are really San Francisco, California, United States of America. All of these hundreds of people, I couldn't believe it, on the street. And come to find out, actually, they said, you know what, where do these people come from? Actually, they used to be the tenants in these same buildings. They can't afford to live there anymore. So they're living on the street. Khasara. So we have more money. We never used to have billionaires before. When I was a kid, a millionaire, that was like, wow. Millionaire, poor guy, you know, they all help him, you know. And now we're looking at, you know, billionaire is not that big of a deal anymore. It's like we need to have trillionaires now. So do you think that's going to lower the level of homelessness or increase it? So economically, khasara, the more we go into it, you know, it's like quicksand. When you fall into quicksand, what happens? You know quicksand, y'all heard of quicksand? It's just like, it's the sand, yeah. And you fall into it, and you just keep sinking.
The more you struggle,
And the more you struggle, the deeper you go in. So what do you have to do?
Stand still.
Yep, exactly. Now you stand still, you stop sinking, but you don't get out. You need somebody to hand you a rope and pull you out. Otherwise, you're not going to get out. And this is exactly our situation. You're in quicksand, you human being, economically, politically, socially, whatever, mentally, you know, mental illness now has just gone so rampant that, and we're supposed to, we have the wherewithal, you would imagine, to alleviate it. Security, you know, man has never been so unsecured in his history. So we need to stop what we're doing, turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, get hold of the word of Allah, and Allah will pull us out through Iman. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Iman, amal salih, the whole process mentioned here. Establishing haqq, exhorting one another for real righteousness, you know, and being patient therein. So, total success in the world, and also deliverance from ultimate loss. It also depends on Iman. So Iman is not like it's nice to have or isn't that nice, it's a must. It's the foundation. Okay, what else? Guidance. We need guidance. Guidance is for who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the wali of the mu'mineen. He is the wali of the people of Iman. He's the friend, he's the helper. Right? And indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Inna Allah lahadi alladhina amanu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide the people of Iman. If you don't have Iman, you're not going to get guidance. Dignity and honor. Everybody's talking about that now, right? This whole human rights thing is about what? Dignity and honor. So dignity and honor is for who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Honor and dignity comes with Iman. It doesn't come with, I'm from here, I'm from there, I got this, I got that. If you have Iman, then you're qabil al-izzah. You are, qualified to become honored and dignified. Without Iman, there's no honor, there's no dignity. And to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala belongs all honor and dignity. And to His Messenger, to the people of Iman. Steadfastness in deen. Allahu Akbar. يثبت الله الذين آمنوا بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. So being steadfast, and remaining consistent, you have to have the basis of Iman. Okay. A beautiful and blessed life. That's what the American dream, right? Everybody who comes to America, they're chasing the elusive the American dream, which for many ultimately turns out to be a nightmare. And they wish we could wake up, but wake up will take place in the grave, and so that's going to be too late. So if we want a good, blessed, and beautiful life in America, in Palestine, in Pakistan, in Borneo, in Timbuktu, wherever, it requires Iman on the side. Now, من عمل صالحا من ذكر وأنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. الله أكبر. So, whoever, man, woman, whoever they are, whatever they might be, irrespective, if they have Iman, they do righteous action, and righteous action is predicated on Iman. You can't do righteous action if you don't have Iman. It won't be a righteous action. It might look like a right, but it won't be acceptable as righteous action. Righteous action has these conditions. It is the order of Allah, and it is on the way of Rasulullah, and it has a proper intention, like we talked about yesterday. So without that intention, even the best of action is not considered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as good action. So all of that depends on Iman. So blessed life in this world and the next. And by the way, what do we mean by a blessed life? That I have, this big property in the suburbs and I'm driving at least a Mercedes.
A life of contentment.
Exactly.
Instead of a financial success, you have financial freedom.
So your finances have succeeded, not you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
But rather,
I've got a big house. So what? How happiness? We feel it in the house. Does the house feel it? Does the car feel it? Does the new iPhone feel it? What?
People are always chasing that in this society. But financial freedom is really what you're after. What I'm after, financial freedom. I'm not worried about these things. What I have is I'm content with it.
So actually, what we want, at the end of the day, we want to feel content.
Freedom.
Now, probably you all know I before accepting that I was a professional musician, right? So music, we're all looking for it to be whatever. I don't know. Now, back in those days, there was a group, and they're still around. The Rolling Stones, you might have heard them, right? Some are still alive, which means they're really tough guys. Because usually in that industry, which is one of the reasons I got out of it, if you live to be 30 years old, you're really exceptional. Yeah, really. Most of my colleagues, they never saw 40 years of age. So anyway, these guys, one of their most successful songs back in those days was this song called Satisfaction. And under the word satisfaction, they have these parentheses, just can't get none. And that's what the whole song, it was a one line in the whole song. That's all it was. I just can't get no satisfaction. Anybody heard that song? Hopefully not. But probably we have anyway. Just can't get no satisfaction. I mean, aren't you like an international star, you know? And you've got your own private jets and you've got palaces all over the world and you've got everything that money can buy. But you know what? Money can't buy satisfaction. So he remains, just can't get no satisfaction. I got all this stuff, but, and the fans are, wow, listen to what the guy's saying. He's saying he can't get any satisfaction. Why? Because there's no satisfaction in all those things. Allah bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. There's only satisfaction in remembrance of Allah. Dhikrullahi wa ma wala. The remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and whatever is connected to it. You know, we feel very comfortable here. Why? Because we're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So everything connected with the dhikr of Allah, there's where satisfaction. In Pakistan, in Karachi, there was a guy that lived near, you know, my house. Between my house and the masjid, there was a little alley, a little road, a lane, and there was a sidewalk. And there was a fellow who used to come in the night after Salat al-Isha. He had a bicycle, and with his bicycle, he had a little pillow, and he had a little, you know, a little kind of blanket or whatever. And so he would park his bike, lay his blanket down, put his pillow down. Now, this is interesting because we're talking about the homeless. This guy was also homeless. But you know, you go to the homeless place, these people don't look very happy, right? They're not very content with their lot, and why would they be? But this fellow, he would lay down his little bed and put on his hand, and you meet the guy, Assalamu alaikum, how you doing? Alhamdulillah, how's life? Allahu Akbar, Allah ki shukr. You know, when they say, operate. And this is an interesting thing. You go in poor neighborhoods, you know, people are, you know, wow. You know, oh, Allah ki bari fazal hai, Allah ki shukr hai. You know, all praise to Allah. And you go in the fancy areas. In Karachi, we have this place called Defense. It's called Defense because it actually was a society that was supposed to be for the retired big shots of the armed forces. Right? Defense. And it's a very defensive place. So you go there, you know, you meet the people, and they got these big walls, and they got these, you know, guards standing with submachine guns and radar looking, you know, the securities. It's like they're in jail, you know. You meet the guy that owns the place. Bhai kya haal hai? Kya bata sakta. You know, you know, say, how's it going, man? You know, oh, what can I say? This masala, I got this. Guys, just wait a minute, man. You got this biggest house in the city. You got there. None of that it's not helping you. So actually, if you look at a jail, it's got a big wall, and you got, you know, some people are inside in these big villas, you know, they got a big wall and barbed wire on top. So what's the difference? He's in a jail, he's in a jail. And maybe the guy that's actually the criminal, he's sleeping better at night than he is. In many cases, that's the fact. So it has nothing to do with external. External things have no bearing on the condition of the heart and mind, really. Of course, you know, people are influenced and they get affected by that, but when Iman is in the heart, and there's a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, what he said, very amazing thing. He said, ماذا يفعل أعدائي بي? What will my enemies do with me? I mean, how can they, you know, they can't really hurt me. فإن قتلي شهادة. They kill me, alhamdulillah, you know, it's a shahada. I'm a martyr. What's better than that? You know, thank you, basically. وَالسِّجْنِ خَلْوَةٌ. If they put me in the prison, then it's a khalwa. I'll be alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's, you know, that's like, you know, like the wedding night, you know, the bride and the groom alone, what's greater than that? So the lover of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being alone with Allah, khalwa. Our Nabi alayhi salam, you know, Ghali Hira, before, you know. And it's the practice of all the pious people is from time to time going into khalwa, leaving the creation and being alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's great. i'tikaf, basically, that's the concept. Even though there's other people around, but actually we're supposed to be like, you're in khalwa mal jalwa, even though you're with the public, but you're actually. So he says, you put me in prison, and so, okay, fine, it's a great opportunity. As a matter of fact, that's what they did. And he died in prison. And in that prison, he used to make dua for the people who imprisoned him. They said, well, I give them more and more because they gave me this opportunity. And actually, in that prison is when he wrote his very famous tafsir. It's a monumental work. And so, the affair of the mu'min is all, and whatever happens to him, it's great. It's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the best thing for me. Okay, so if they put me in jail, it's a khalwa. وَلَوْ أَخْرَجُونِي سِيَاحَةً. If they send me out of the country, the exile, or they deport me, okay, this is siyaha, vacation, holiday. See, and that's siyaha is actually a mawdu', in our tradition, to travel and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invites us to fasihu fil ard. فانظر كيف كان عاقبة الذين كانوا من قبلكم. See the things, the people, the culture that came before, and the various signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, So the people of Iman, they are least affected by external conditions. And if we don't have Iman, the slight change in external conditions totally throws our world upside down. Poor guys that are connected to the stock market, it goes up, it goes down, they're between a heart attack and blowing up, so what's the point? The point is that we shouldn't be connected to any of that. It's all creation, it's all powerless. We need to be connected to the Creator, and that is predicated on Iman. So we're starting to get an idea how important Iman is, okay? Whoever does righteousness, whether male or female, while they are believers in the state of Iman, surely we'll give them a beautiful life, a life of contentment, of happiness, satisfaction. I'm, on my way to meet Allah. And I'm on my way to enter into paradise, where I'll live forever and ever and ever. Salam and salama. So this is the beautiful life. He may have much of dunya, he may have nothing of dunya. It's immaterial. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's friendship and alliance. We're all looking for alliances. Who's going to help me out of this situation? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you. فَهُوَ حَسْبُ. وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُ. He's enough. The creator of the universe is with me. What do I need anybody else for? And and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with who? He's with the people of Iman. Allahu waliyul ladina amanu. He's with the people of Iman. So if you have Iman, then you have Allah with you, you have everything. And if we don't have Iman, then we don't have Allah, we have nothing. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defense, security, that's one of the biggest issues out there. Security. So to whom is there security? Right? Inna Allah yudafi'u 'anil ladina amanu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to the defense of the people of Iman. Security. There's interesting, when I lived in Pakistan, people were pretty amazed. How can you live in Pakistan? Why do you live in Pakistan? Well, there's some interesting things in Pakistan. One of the interesting things, we just talked about the atomic energy program that our brother came in, Jugaad, it was all done out of Jugaad. So anyway, the end of that story was, after they developed, the atom bomb there in Pakistan, and they actually, it was starting to function. So the security authorities came to inspect what kind of security arrangements have been made for this new fledgling nuclear installation that the whole world is trying to extinguish. So what security measures have you done for this? So this fellow, his name was Sultan Bashir. Do you know Sultan Bashir?
No.
Actually, yeah. We did a seminar together, so I heard this whole story directly from him. Very interesting guy. Now he writes books. He's retired. But he was actually the originator of that program, not Dr. Qadir. Dr. Qadir was hired by him, but he was, and nobody knows about him too much, but he was actually the guy that started, he was actually the project manager of that whole thing. Okay, so now the whole thing is up and running after an amazing story of getting that up and running. So now the security people come, and now they're looking to see all these layers of security to protect this new fledgling nuclear establishment, which the world is pretty upset about. How did Pakistan get this capacity? So they're coming and they don't really see what they're expecting to see. Bashir Bhai, we don't see the kind of security. Hamara security aage. He said, the security that's ahead of you. Just relax, hang on. So they get into, in a nuclear reactor, you've got this big dome, right? Looks like, Al-Quds. Every reactor has got a big, circular dome. So they get into the dome. So what they had done was, they had made in stainless steel 10-foot letters of Ayatul Kursi. And they put it all around the dome. He said, you don't want a security yet. He said, this is our security. Ayatul Kursi. Now who's going to do that? Somebody with Iman. If you don't have Iman, that's not going to cut it. But there's an interesting thing, and he says that, just like we had this in, what was that place in Japan that they had to leak? Fujiyama, something, I can't pronounce the name. He said actually that there's almost all nuclear installations somewhere along the line down through the years, there's going to be some slip-ups and leaks, and there's going to be some issues. Here, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to, but again, it requires iman and yaqeen. Nabi alayhi sallam taught us certain du'as to make, certain ayats to read, right? Certain practices, certain salat to offer. And Allah will protect us. But that is predicated on iman. We have to have iman for that to work. Love and affection in the hearts of the creation. Everybody wants to be popular, right? People should love me, people should respect me on me. So, okay, that whatever it may be, but where does that come from, by the way? Does that come because I'm so smart or beautiful or intelligent or whatever, It comes actually real love in the creation, in the hearts of the creation for anyone is also based on iman. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts in the hearts of the creation love for the people of iman. And a famous hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He loves somebody, He calls Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam. He says, Ya Jibreel, I love so-and-so, you also love him. Jibreel alayhi salam starts loving that individual. Might be somebody that nobody pays attention to. Many times, actually, that's how it is. Rubba ash'ath aghbar, law aqsama ala Allahi labarra. Nabi alayhi salam says that there's many of these fellows with disheveled hair, and they've got dust on their bodies and their clothes, and nobody pays any attention to them. Maybe they carry, stuff in the street, or they're laborers, or who knows what they do. But nobody pays any attention. Madfu'un an abwab. If they knock on somebody's door seeking help, or just, hey, off with you. Who are you? Be gone, right? However, what is not apparent is their condition and connection with Allah because of iman. If that individual says, "Oh Allah, do this and that for me," Allah does it. And there's instances in Sahaba where one of the Sahabis, his niece, I suppose it was, she had a little tussle with another lady and her tooth was broken. So qasas was that her tooth should be broken. So Allah says, no, it's not going to happen. Rasulullah said, yeah, this is qasas, we can't. So no, Allah will. That's what happened ultimately. Allah put in the hearts of the khasam, of the opponents, that okay, excuse it. So Nabi said, min ibadillahi man aqsama ala Allahi la barra. So there are people who, if they swear on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do for them. And this is based on what? On Iman. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts love and affection. So anyway, so Jibreel alayhi salam, when he is told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah loves him, you also love him, so he loves him. And then Jibreel alayhi salam calls all of the malaika. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves so and so, I love him, you also all love him. And they all love him. And then in the hearts of everyone and everything, the love of that individual is spread on the earth. And that's not just people. The animals love him. The wind loves him. The angels love him. The sea loves him. You find that the whole creation, comes to assistance of that. And we have many stories of that in Sahaba. And another than our pious ancestors. And to this very day, you'll hear things of this nature. And this is so based on what? Based on Iman. Based on what? Iman. So we're getting the idea how important is Iman? It is the most important thing, right? Indeed, those who have believed and done righteous deeds, the most merciful, Ar-Rahman, will appoint for them affection. Allah. And then, best of all, إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون نزلا من غفور رحيم. Now, ultimately, at the very end of this worldly existence, for the people of Iman, this is going to be the scenario. Now, just picture, and all of us are going to face this, if not today, tomorrow. The time of death, we're leaving this world that we know, that we are seeing, and we're going into the next world of the unseen. Not only is it unseen, it's uncertain. We don't know how we're going to fare there. Are we going to make it or not? What about what we're leaving behind? What's going to happen? At that point, the people of Iman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down the malaika. Don't worry, right? تتنزل عليهم الملائكة. At the point of death, between now this world and the next, the person is facing, the uncertainty of the hereafter. The angels come and say, relax. You have nothing to worry about. And لا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا. Don't be afraid ahead of you because you are promised paradise. You've got paradise with you. There's no fear ahead of you. What about behind you? No fear there. No. Don't be sorrowful. Don't get stressed out about that as well, because that's going to be taken care of. We are your friends in this worldly life, and they will take care of you. All of your concerns that you're leaving behind you as well. No concern ahead of you, no concern behind you, and have the glad tidings of a paradise in which you will remain forever. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسُكُمْ. You'll have in paradise whatever your nafs wants. If you want what your nafs wants in the world, it's dhillah, it's a disgrace, and you'll disgrace yourself. And that's what's going on in the world today. Everyone is running after their desires. And to fulfill our desires, we are disgracing and humiliating ourselves, both in this world and both in the next. In the next world, you will have whatever you desire. Can anybody in the world, whatever you have, can anybody in the world have all that they want? Is Pharaoh able to do it? Qarun, Haman, President of the United States? Nobody. In the hereafter, everybody will have everything they want. And when they get everything that they want, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them things that no eye has seen, no ear has heard. Nobody could even in their wildest imagination imagine it. Based on what? Iman. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ. They said our Rabb is Allah. Doesn't mean they just, lip service. They said what was in their heart. What was in their heart? Iman. Our Rabb is Allah. Our creator, our sustainer, our controller. Who we have to return to is Allah. So for them, it's all of us. So Iman, it's important or not? Most important thing. Now, the trillion-dollar question is, how important actually and practically is it in our life? If it's that important, what are we doing to build it, protect it, and increase it? What are we doing? That's for all of us to ask ourselves first. How much are we concerned about what, about what is not even in our control, which is out of our, which is already written in our destiny, and yet, day in and day out, planning and plotting and worrying and hoping and for that which is already destined, and for which is temporary, and which we will leave. Whatever it may ultimately become, whatever we achieve here, it's going to remain behind. And where we're going to live forever and ever. So, proportionately, therefore, even though it's not really as a hadith, but it's a correct saying, and people say it, and many times it's misquoted, misunderstood, that work for your dunya, i'mal li dunyaka ka'annaka ta'ish abadan, ta'kan tamut ghadan, wa'amal li akhirah kana ta'ish abadan, yurwa, right? Work for your dunya as though you're going to die tomorrow, and work for your akhirah as though you're going to, live forever.
Isn't that the other way around?
Huh?
Isn't it the other way around?
Huh?
Isn't it the other way around? No.
But that's how we do it.
I've always felt that's how we do it, though. Oh, yeah, that's how people do it.
So if you know that you're going to leave this world, or the other way around is how they're
never going to leave.
So if you're never leaving the world, then are you going to really just get really strung out about it? You're not going to worry about it. If you're going to die tomorrow, then what? There was a fellow in Yemen, and he went to the Hakim, the traditional tabib, and he said, I feel some kind of pain. So they used to feel the pulse, and they used to actually. I've seen these old Hakims. They in the old days they said, don't tell me anything. I'll tell you your history. About 5 years ago, you're having this. About 10 years. Really, I've seen this. And so I don't know if you'll find in the hospitals here in the medical universities they have that. We used to have that in our church. Anyway, so the Hakim told him, said, hey, I'm sorry. We don't have any, you've got, a problem that we don't have any cure for. So what are you saying? What I'm saying is that you've got about 4 months to live, and that's about it. Sorry, but the whole shafal. So we got 4 months. Come on, doc. Some hal. We don't have anything for that. So that's, enjoy your next 4 months because that's what you got. So you can imagine this poor guy. I got 4 months to live. Just imagine ourselves. 4 months to live, and that's it. We're gonna, So being a Muslim now, if he wasn't a Muslim, he would just go berserk, trying to get as much pleasure in that he can in the next 4 months. As a Muslim, obviously, we're leaving the world and we're going to the next world, so let's get ready. So the guy forgot about his food, his drink, his sleep, his comfort, salat and dhikr and sadaqah and, rahim, 4 months went by, 5 months, 6 months, still okay. So then he went to the Hakim, hey, this was 6 months ago. He said, I only have 4 months. He said, you have a problem with that? Alhamdulillah, He said, actually, there was nothing wrong with you at all, except you were obese. You're overweight. If I told you don't eat this, don't eat that, it wouldn't have worked. But I said, you got 4 months to live. Look at you now. The guy was about 70 pounds. Slim, fit. Now this fellow thought he had 4 months to live. And so look, he has now totally changed the course of his life. We don't know that we have 4 seconds to live. Nobody knows. Maybe someone mentioned something. If I give salam on this side, I don't know I'm going to live. And that's the reality. To say salam on the other side. So preparing for that, And so again, Iman is the crux and the basis for all of this. So may Allah SWT give us tawfiq to develop that Iman. Okay? And then in the hereafter, okay, the next world, then that's pretty straightforward. Most of us know that, but we need to really ponder over it, think over it, meditate upon that. Tawfiq during the questioning in the grave. Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. This is a very famous riwayah of Bukhari. He would go by the grave and he would just nearly, dissolve in fear and huzn, just weeping at the side of the grave. And it was noticed that if you mentioned Jahannam or these other things, he wasn't so much affected, but they mentioned the grave. So his reply was, this is the first Ya'ud al-Manazil. It's the first station. If you make it there, you're clear. And if you don't make it there, after that, it's going to get worse and worse. So in that place, now imagine it. And we need to do, there's a thing called muraqabat al-maut. We need to do this. Every day we need to actually sit, cut off from it, and just picture ourselves dying. We're being, we're being washed, we're being put in the shroud, we're being put in the grave. And now in the grave, there's nobody there, nothing. And our own relatives, our husband, our wife, our children, our fathers, mother, they all come to the graveside, or put into the grave, they put the stone on top, they cover it up. Now everybody's gone. No connection with anything. Only our amal, our iman and our amal is going to be there in the grave. That's it. So how is it going to differ? The munkar and nakir, nobody's going to be there to say, hey, take it easy, this is my friend, or this is our relative, or, I know him. Nothing. Only our iman and our amal is going to help us over there. So here, Nabi Sallallahu mentions, in fact, Allah mentioned, the same ayat, it's going to come to play in a number of stations at the time of death in the grave as well. Here also, Iman will come to the rescue of that person and answering the questions of Munkar and Nakir, so there in the grave also, Iman is going to come to our assistance, and all that amal that we did as a result of Iman, our tilawat, our salat, our zakat, and all those things will come to our protection. So we need to think about that. And thinking about that, pondering, having a meditation, on a daily basis. This is what our aslaf, our pious ancestors were very critical about. And therefore, Nabi Sallallahu, as I mentioned, I think probably in the khutbah yesterday, increase, excessively remember the destroyer of the pleasures. أَكْثِرُ مِنْ ذِكْرِ هَادِمِ اللَّذَّاتِ. Remember incessantly the destroyer of pleasures, death. But of course, worldly pleasures. For the person that's prepared, death is the opening to the highest felicity. Therefore, it's also called Tuhfat al-Mu'min. It's a very scary, proposition. At the same time, for the person that's prepared and is accepted, it's the tuhfa, it's the gift. Now we're leaving the world of trials and tribulations and Dar al-Jaza. So if we prepared for that, it's the day worth living for. As someone said rightly, he said, death is the day worth living for. So that's a whole different. Here, nobody wants to hear about death. Even you go and see a dying person, you're not supposed to say anything about death, right? Don't mean it. What do you mean? Tell the guy, you're leaving here, get ready, Tawbah, istighfar, you're leaving. Think about death. He's on the door. And after he leaves, we're leaving behind him. Everybody should be thinking about this. We don't want to hear about it. We don't want to talk about it. We need to talk about it. We need to hear about it. And prepare for it. Unfortunately, we don't believe in anything after it, and that's a different story, but we do, again, Iman. Allahu Akbar. And then ultimately, Nur on the Sirat. You won't get into Jannah unless we pass over this bridge, which is mentioned as sharp as a sword and as fine as a hair. How are we going to pass over that? Well, Iman is going to come to our assistance there as well. It's Nur on the Sirat, right? يوم ترى المؤمنين والمؤمنات يسعى نورهم بين أيديهم وأيمانهم. That day, and then they mentioned that is going over the bridge over Jahannam into paradise. The Nur of Iman is going to lighten the way ahead and to the right, and ultimately guiding the way into paradise. Allah. And then ultimately, Jannatul Firdaus forever, never to desire any place other. Everywhere we go in dunya, we're always looking for the better place, right? We got to California. Okay, we got to Sacramento. It's nice. If I had a place in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills. So we get to Beverly Hills. But on top of Beverly Hills is Bel Air. Oh, I just have that place in Bel Air. Over another 10, 20 years. They get the place in Bel Air, and then, but if I just had a place on the Riviera, there's no end to it. You know, as Nabi Sallallahu says, the stomach of the Bani Adam, it doesn't get filled except with dirt. If you give him a valley of gold, he wants the second. And if you got the second, of course, he would want the third, etc. So everybody wants, whatever we have, we're always looking for better. We're never satisfied. But if you get to Jannatul Firdaus, you would never want to leave there. After 1,000,000 years, 1,000,000,000,000 years, quadrillions of years, you're enjoying in Jannat Firdaus, and you never want to change that place. It's always getting better and better and better. Allah. May Allah make us all the inhabitants therein. Say Ameen. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا خالدين فيها لا يبغون عنها حولا. Indeed, those who have believed, the people of Iman, and they do righteous deeds, they do righteous actions, they will have the gardens of Firdaus, the gardens of bliss, as a lodging. Nuzulan. Nuzulan is what is prepared for the guest, right? Lodging, food, entertainment, everything. Whatever you prepare for the guest, that is called nuzul. So imagine the nuzul that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to prepare for His guests. There they will abide eternally, never to desire from it transfer ever. They will never want to leave from it. Billions and trillions of years go on. It's infinitely. They will never want to leave from there. And they won't. They'll reside forever. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq. So Iman is the basis of Amal Salih, and as you've seen many of these ayats, Amal Salih is connected with Iman. Inna alladhina amanu Amal Salihat. And Amal Salih min dhakarin wa untha wa mu'min. So Iman and the fruit of Iman is Amal Salih. So on these basis, all the basis of the good of this world and the next is based on this. So again, we need to be focused on developing Iman and Amal Salih. That's our capital, right? So that being the case, let us define Iman. What is Iman? How do you define Iman? So how would you all define Iman?
I think it's something that define it as trust in Allah.
Trust in Allah.
If I have Iman, then the product of Iman is I will.
Okay, yeah, so that's the product. But what is Iman itself? What's the essence, the definition of Iman? What is Iman?
It's not belief and trust in Allah.
Yeah, that's part. Absolutely. What else?
This is a path between the fear and with hope and the fear of.
Okay, Iman, bain al-khawf wa raja. So Iman is between the two.
Yes.
So, but what is it?
The path.
Okay. All right, so we all kind of feel it because we all, alhamdulillah, have iman. So we probably have an understanding from a spiritual standpoint, but defining it in words may be challenging. So let's look and see what the ulama say. So the ulama say that it is basically the firm and unfaltering faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Actually, it comes from iman, from a tasdeeq, right? وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُؤْمِنٍ لَنَا وَلَا كُنَّا صَادِقِينَ. The sons of Yaqub alayhi salam, they say, you're not a mu'min on us, even though we are telling you the truth. They weren't telling the truth, of course, but so you're not mu'min, meaning in this instance, you don't believe us, you don't have firm belief on us and what we're saying. So iman is basically, number one, is this firm and unshakable belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His names and attributes as described by Himself and His Rasul. كما وصفه ورسوله. As we also, as I mentioned earlier, the people from Pakistan, India, they learn this from their kids. Amantu billahi kama huwa. Kama huwa. I believe in Allah as He is. But the problem is we don't know how He is because we don't see Him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described Himself to the extent that we can understand according to our human limitations. So He has sent to us His names and His attributes: Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Malik, Al-Quddus, Al-Mu'min, Al-Muhaymin, ila akhir. So we believe in Allah as He is. And how is He? As He has described Himself in His names and His attributes. And therefore, every Muslim should study this, should know the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is because our belief is on those attributes and on those. So the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which are not the entirety of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has unlimited names, but the ones that He has revealed to us and He has told us about that are found in His book and also in Sahih Sunnah of Rasulullah. So we should know this. We believe on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His attributes and His names. Secondly, we believe in all that has been authentically conveyed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In Arabic, it's very short and succinct. وَكُلَّ مَا جَاءَ بِهِ مُحَمَّدٌ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. Nabi sallallahu conveyed many things about the unseen. And belief is basically, we're talking about iman on the unseen. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. So all of these imaniyat, all of these articles of iman, all have to do with the unseen. We're not talking about what we're seeing. Therefore, all of this unseen on the Day of Judgment will become seen. It won't be iman in them. It will be mushahada, and it's not going to be of any assistance. So iman, belief on the unseen, is what we're talking about, and that is what is going to serve us. So belief in all that has been authentically conveyed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like the adab of qabr, punishment in the grave, the salah we just talked about, over the mizan, and all these things, and all this description of things in the unseen that we are unaware of. We have no way of seeing that with our senses. We have only the information that Rasulullah has given us. And if it is substantiated that Nabi has said this, and has mentioned this, and therefore we said that has been authentically conveyed. Because there's a lot of stuff out there floating around that Nabi is claimed to have said this, that. Did he actually say that? Therefore we have science of hadith, which we have science of rijal and checking of the asanid, the authority of the chains of narration, which is such a complicated and delicate and intricate science that actually the world has never seen anything like that. Still to this day, which is one of the miracles, of Islam. And it all is connected with the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised to protect His book. Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sworn that we have sent this book and we will protect it. So not only the Quran is memorized, but the way in which it was recited is memorized. The pronunciation of every harf has been memorized, with riwayat, with narrations, And everything that has been narrated about the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was a living Quran and a demonstrator of the Quran, everything about his life is also miraculously protected. So not only the Quran, the words of the Quran, but everything connected to the Quran. The Quran, the life of Rasul, the life of his companions and their companions. We know more about that than we know about the people who are living in this very age that we live in. How many of you know the number of gray hairs in the head and hair, a beard of your father? Nobody. But we know how many gray hairs were in the head and beard of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was 19, 20, like this. This was a man who lived 1400 years ago. If we know such kind of details, and even the most intimate interactions, even with his wives, and where we wouldn't know such things about our own parents. We know about Rasulullah through Muhammad, etc. This is all, pursuant to the protection of the Book of Allah. Because the Book of Allah and the whole description and the practical application of the book is the life of Rasulullah. And for the protection of that, the protection of the Arabic language. The Arabic language is the only language on the face of the earth that has lived this long. From the Jahili period to now, that is the language. It hasn't changed at all. There's no other language on the face of the earth like that. It's the only language that has been living and been in use. Why? Because this is the language of Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has protected the Quran, therefore even the language is protected. Okay. So we have belief in all that Nabi alayhi salatu has mentioned, provided that we substantiate that is authentically, substantiate that Rasulullah alayhi salatu actually said that. And therefore we don't accept in Aqidah, belief, we don't accept the very high standards of Sahih Hadith. Okay. And lastly, as the ulama say, the attestation of the tongue, the affirmation of the heart, and the action of the limbs. Nutqun bil lisan, tasdiqun bil jinan, wal amal bil arkan. A speech of the tongue, but it doesn't mean just a speech of the tongue that goes off into the hawa, into the air. It's a speech of the tongue that permeates into the heart. And the heart there, upon that speech, it affirms, the heart affirms that. And when the heart affirms that, what signifies that the heart has confirmed what the tongue has said is that the body responds in kind. It responds in action. So the hands operate according to the steep of the heart. The tongue moves in coordination with the belief of the heart. The eyes, the ears, every part of the body is now in sync with that belief and that attestation. Allahu Akbar. This is Iman. To the extent that we can define it in words, and it was best. Here is a statement of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mubarak. He says, ليس الإيمان بالتمني ولا بالتحلي ولكن ما وقر في القلب والصدق والعمل. He says, Iman is not by wishing or ostentatious show. Because I have a nice big beard and I wear a nice imama, so I'm a mu'min, right? It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the state of heart, right? Not to say that outward manifestations are not significant. Maybe some had a beard, so I have a beard. If you wore a turban, I wear a turban. But this doesn't predicate our Iman. So it all depends on the intention, it depends. So the outward is generally a manifestation of an inward. And the inward is also affected by the outward. So having mentioned that, it should also be mentioned, some people think that our outward appearance has nothing to do with our inner condition and vice versa, but actually that's not true. And even when we dress and how we carry ourselves, it has an effect on our inner being. Just as our inner being affects the outward manifestation of action. It's an interaction of the two, the inward and the outward. You can do an exercise. One day, put on a t-shirt and jeans and go through your daily routine. The next day, put on a suit and tie and go through your daily routine. See if you feel any different. You know? Or put on very Islamically, related type of clothing, whatever that might be. And then the other day, total opposite. It has an impact. Everything impacts the human being is very impactful. Everything affects him or her. Anyway, so Iman is not just, by wishing, I hope, I think I'm a mu'min, or I dress up like a mu'min, but it is in fact what is firmly rooted in the heart and verified by action. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that Iman. Okay, so we have we can go on for quite a while here, but I think we've gone, let's have a little break. And after this, we're going to talk about developing and protecting Iman, inshallah. Otherwise, this whole section, usually we would take just about Iman, because since Nabi Sallallahu spent 13 years teaching Iman in Makkah, at least a few hours or a day or so, we would do well to still just to cover it verbally, at least, some of the dimensions of Iman. So it's not something we're going to quickly get do away with. Okay, so inshallah, let's take 5 minutes break, get up and move around, and get the blood flowing. And inshallah, we'll be back. It's now what I think around 11:53. So let's 53 at 12 o'clock, inshallah. What time is Salat, by the way?
1:30.
1:30. 1:30. Right. Okay, so we can continue up to what, like about 1:15?
Yeah.
Huh? Is that okay? Okay.
You need water or anything?
Assalamu alaikum. Again.
And my son is also came from the bedroom. I called him, so he's just coming. He was sitting with me now in the worship.
Oh,
Hashim, I guess, I met you way back in Karachi. My uncle, he went to Jamaica, and so he was he lived inside the school. So, anyway, somehow we stopped you at your house. Oh, and then you invited me.
What's your jacket at?
My brother.
Just putting out. Your jacket's heavy.
So now I'm looking for something.
Is the key with this or something? Huh?
we're here.
Yeah. They do all the work overseas, but I mean, all the work is done. And we visit everything at the school.
Yes.
Love sounds very good.
Is there anything I can get you?
Yeah, you could take this one.
Is it a micro or something?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I studied computer science. 97 I was at the junior in high school. And then afterwards, I graduated my brother.
You grew up here?
Yeah, Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah.
Detroit?
Detroit. I think you were in Cleveland, so
I was born in Cleveland.
oh,
I was born in Cleveland, but I left in
I think you usually sort of make sure.
Honestly,
I haven't seen him for a long time.
I saw Harun last year, just for yeah, we're all in together. Before we went overseas to study and all that, we all lived together in Brooklyn. But in those days, there was nothing happening. That was it. That was before doctors and engineers were able to shake uses for all those social misfits. Real musicians or some yeah, absolutely.
oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, that-
I don't think we
Is he still alive?
Yes, I haven't seen him for a while. His son's,
Yeah, he has been there since the early days. Yeah, so we had a handful of brothers like in Pakistan.
So, well, I
Then they,
so it's kind of a little bit of everything. I mean, primarily my job.
Mostly our son was
But I can't. So I always
I grew up in Boston.
so Monday through Friday, I do like a
You might have, I think, after.
and I teach them like positive skills. So
yeah. Actually, originally there was five of us. Three former musicians. Rain al-Haq is still alive in Chicago. Rain al-Haq, I don't know. He's in Chicago. He's from he and the team and myself, we were all former musicians. And then in 1979, and then after that, then they made a big show. Which a lot of people don't know Anyway, some of the brothers really did. I mean, someone stuck on the street and out in the night.
I was actually still working there, they were off for the discussion.
Zubair. Zubair.
Honestly, it's like.
It's always a bad one. And one of the reasons why I meet these particularly good
Okay, I'm here.
eating habits, exercise, sleep habits, and all that. So we are digging early graves for ourselves. That's also.
Right now, the day program is what is like my primary thing. I'm working on building after school.
It's very stressing.
Yeah.
And diet is terrible and no exercise. It's just a cocktail for disaster. So by the time they're 40 years old, they've all got diabetes and heart problems, and they're sitting in chairs, they can't move. It's bad.
And that's one of the, I mean, for myself, like when I was younger, I felt this energy and spirituality when I was like, especially in the and I wasn't very active, like an activist, but when I started college, then essays and all these different things, but became a lot more active in the same sense. But those songs are, I lost some of that spirituality.
Yeah, of course. Spirituality requires spirituality.
I didn't like avoid that. Just
No, that's good. You don't do that.
You don't want to be sued by Chef Hashim either.
Huh?
Remember that McDonald's lady who spilled coffee on herself?
Yeah. I just wanted to go to the finance department.
Yeah, but I wouldn't do that. So, okay, that's good. When do you go back to Salah?
I go in December, inshallah. Wednesday, December 18th. Yesterday, I talked to a friend, your son was also there in Ijtima, Lahore. Ali.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they were in Lahore.
Yeah, he's a good kid. He's the baby.
Is Abdurrahman in LA or?
Rahan is in Boston.
Oh, I think he was in Boston for a few years.
That was Suleiman.
Oh,
That was Suleiman. Suleiman and his brother Abu Bakr in Detroit, in San Diego. And my eldest daughter, Fatima. My eldest son, Ibrahim, is in Long Island, Masjid Noor.
Is there a flyer that I can put in my great room water, which is not like for Muslims, but for non-Muslims? This is the only way.
We have another one.
Is it on the website?
I'll show you. One of them is one in the middle.
ISB.
I actually been talked about this.
This is something that I can give to a
But,
non-Muslim with the address and
anyway,
date and
yeah,
time.
yeah.
They are interested about Islam.
They're all married to
Just like
Oh,
personalized
okay.
cards.
Yeah.
We actually want to make
Almost all.
we're printing the cards themselves, like proper cards.
Okay, so how can, is it on website? Can I print it myself?
Yeah, we want to get, we have to print the actual card stock, so we should get it from the.
Okay. But I guess if I want to print it, I can print it on the website. No, something, I mean, I can put it on my paper.
Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you about this.
Getting a degree in computer
Yeah.
science.
Maybe you have,
Okay, good.
yeah, I have called the open house one.
Okay.
How long have you been here?
It's a lot.
I like it.
So who is gonna do it?
You like it better here, you like it in the
Will be
phone?
the speaker?
Huh?
He's from IRA, you know.
IRA, yeah, the publisher.
Huh?
IRA.
Southern California.
They're specialized.
Okay.
I'm in San Jose.
So, I can go and print it directly from the website then.
I mean, this is good too, but whatever you want.
Like for other people.
Sure.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, any questions or any comments before we get started? Do we digest this last session?
I missed past hour. Can you?
Is there any indigestion that needs to be addressed? No.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So it seems like the three things you mentioned, like what Iman is, if one does it, can they know that they have Iman now?
Ah, very good question. In fact, that's coming. We could say, is it like a KPI for Iman? Do you know KPI? And actually, this came up because did anybody check out, who's there yesterday? Did anybody check out our ubmtrust.com? Did you check that out? So those who haven't, they can write that down and check that out, ubmtrust.com. So how do we incorporate Ubudiyya in our business activities, in our business life? As we said, we mentioned in the khutbah yesterday and also in our session last night. So living a life of slavery to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entails everything that we do. Every activity, every role of life, it should be predicated and, molded, designed, and motivated by this concept that we're the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to obey our master in everything that we do. And generally, we think that prayer, dhikr, Quran, coming to the masjid, learning, teaching, maybe this is deen, and the other stuff is dunya, and that's not related to that. No, it is. Deen covers all of that. And so, but you don't know how to do that. So it requires proper intention, it requires following Sharia and understanding Sunnah, and just following that. And it's not difficult, it's not rocket science at all. But people are just unaware of that. So to sort of help people live a life of Ubudiyya in the business context, in the workplace, in their business operations, in their shops, and whatever. So we developed a whole system for that. And that's, now there's a whole organization, it's a trust, it's a nonprofit kind of thing. So, but what we do is a business would bring us in, we'll analyze, we'll do a gap analysis of everything that's going on, and then say, okay, this is, as we mentioned, the as is, this is how things are, and this is where you would like to probably become. And we would look at all the operations in your management, in your supply chain, in your marketing, in your, in your IT, in your HR, and all these things, all these areas. And so we'll try and get everything moving in such a way that it actually is an act of worship. Selling a product to a customer can be an act of worship. You're making money. You can also make the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As an example, Nabi says, Khairun nas mayim for our nas. Various alfal, there's various words that were used in this drought. The basic meaning is, the best of the people are those who benefit people. So, to get our rizq, Allah has already ordained that. Now, how we're going to do it, we have some limited, scope of selection. We can do it in a halal way, a haram way. We can also do it with an intention to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or just an intention to fill our pockets with money, which is not really going to serve anyone. But if we have an intention to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have a good intention to earn halal and benefit people with our products and services, and use the surplus in ways of helping, as we mentioned yesterday, because our resources belong to Allah, we are custodians. So now even a sale can be an act of worship, right? So that whole system of doing business like that is real. You can see that website, and it explains basic principles, the various checklists that we use, and so forth and so on. Okay, now getting to your question. So in that system, we came to this question. So if we're going to be doing a lot of analyses of things, how is our project working, right? Because if we're talking about Ubudiyya and it's all based on Iman, can we actually sort of judge or get an idea or gauge something as, quality control experts say, if you can't measure it, you can't, you can't control it, or you can't, if you can't measure it, how do you know it's getting better or worse, right? You can't evaluate it. So can we evaluate Iman? So people said, no, that's something between you and Allah. But actually, you're going to see that there is something. And we're going to go into that among other things, okay? So, yes, inshallah, we'll get to that. Any other questions, comments, ladies' side, anything? Okay, so let us continue.
So maybe one more question.
Yeah.
So there's this thing about weak Iman and strong Iman. Right?
Exactly.
How does that come into play? Like, is it like you have to have 100% Iman, or is it like 80% okay? Like, how do we think about that?
Very good question, and we're going to talk about that. This is upcoming, inshallah. Usually when we tell the students, this happens a lot when we're reading a book, if the students haven't done Mutala, and of course you can't do Mutala of this because you don't have, you don't have a book or something to prepare for the lesson, right? Which would have been perhaps a nice thing to have done, but it wasn't. But we say that the answer to your question is just 5 minutes down the road. So a lot of times that happens. But yes, by all means ask, and that's a very important question, and that's why it's also going to be here. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil mursaleen. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Here, this is an exercise that we do, and we don't have time for that, and it may not be relevant at this point. What's happening? Frozen here. Okay, so the articles of faith are basically taken from the hadith of Jibreel, and what we do is we usually give that hadith to the people and let them take these things out themselves so they actually see how this is taken out of the hadith. But we don't have time for that, and I think probably most of you, if not all of you, are aware of the fact that there is the hadith of Jibreel in which he explains what are the articles of Iman, and it is belief in Allah, His angels, His books, His prophets, and the hereafter, and Qadr, right? Destiny. Now, if you look at this, we also mentioned the articles of Iman, faith and action. So Iman, it requires action, and it actually, we say in Arabic, istada'i al-amal. Having, by the virtue of Iman being there, automatically, Iman, it draws us towards a particular behavior, particular actions. It's the nature of Iman, okay? So, for example, the belief in Allah, we already talked about that, some of the outcomes that would take place and some of the actions that would, ensue. And here comes your KPIs, because if these actions are manifesting, it's indicating that yes, Iman is here. If they're not, somebody says, I'm a mu'min billah, 5 times salat, they're like, you hear the adhan? Yeah, I hear it. No, but I believe, in my heart, I have love of Allah and His Rasul. So if that be the case, your actions should verify that. Otherwise, your actions are nullifying that claim, right? So behaviors are basically, things that are going to prove to that. So let's take a few of these. For example, Malaika. Some of these are very straightforward, some of them are a bit. What about Malaika? If we have belief in Malaika, what action might come out of that? Yeah?
Doing tasbih like they do.
Doing tasbih like they do?
Meaning.
That's interesting, yeah. That's interesting, yeah. Okay, good. What else?
Always remember they are sitting with us.
Exactly. I mean, the 2 angels that. Okay, why don't you, Imran, put the setting here so it doesn't go.
You restarted.
Huh? No, for this, so it doesn't go to the screen. So if we have belief in the Malaika, for example, we all believe that there is 2 angels. Which of us thought about them today? Yesterday? The whole week? The whole month? So if we're not even cognizant, we believe that they're there, but that belief is a bit weak, because if we really had yaqeen and we're really cognizant, we would always be, anxious. What is he writing? What's going on? So, and if we're really conscious and we have that really strong belief that we're always conscious of these 2 angels writing everything, even though we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing everything also, but we're not conscious of Allah even. And that's a kind of, ghafla, that's a kind of, even though we say we have Iman and whatever, and we do, every Muslim, inshallah, to some degree or the other. Last night we talked about the fellow that's in the ICU and the fellow who's, so both are alive, but there's a big difference between the quality of life. So similarly in Iman, So if we really have this, those people who are the really true friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how did they get there? Because the fact that they don't forget Allah. So Allah doesn't forget them. Allah doesn't forget anyone, but meaning His attention and His special favors, So therefore, having this,
I'm sorry.
oops, this,
I think it went off again.
no, you need to put the setting. You know the setting?
I think I changed the wrong one.
Yes, do it when it's on plugged in. Some things I know how to do. But, you see that. Just put never for both of them. So that's the thing. So if we're always cognizant, and that's why we need to keep in the remembrance of Allah all the time. If we're always remembering Allah, then it will be near impossible for us to disobey Him. If the police are standing there, we know the police are observing me. Am I going to speed? And as soon as I think they're not watching, then. So since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always knowing everything about us, so as long as we are focused on that, it becomes very difficult next to impossible to disobey Him because of our ghafla. We do. Same with the malaika. So obviously, the belief of these various articles of Iman, it produces particular action. That's the whole thing. Let's take another very important, they're all extremely important, but let's look at Qadr. This is really important. Somebody mentioned that when I was there, I forgot to mention that yesterday. But some of the people mentioned in Davis, please mention about Qadr because anxiety, or he didn't say mention Qadr, but someone was mentioning that please talk about anxiety and stress and what do we do about that. There's just one main answer to that. Believe in Qadr. No? My father passed away. Of course, going to be affected. We were hurt by it. But was it Qadr or not? Was it destined? My business totally dissolved. Yeah, that's bad, but it had to be. Not only it had to be, but it's also better for you. That's very difficult for us to understand sometimes. And to illustrate that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this, this amazing example of Qadr and the bewildering nature of it, even to prophets, with the story of Sayyidina Musa with Khidr, alayhi salam. This is Musa, they say, what are you doing? These people took us across the water and for nothing, and you sunk their ship. What's this? I told you, you're not going to be patient. Oh, sorry. Right? They go by a young kid, young boy, beautiful young boy, he's playing with other kids. Khidr takes him and pulls his head off. Huh? قتلت نفسا بغير نفس. You killed a human. What's this? This is Sharia cannot in any way, shape, or form accommodate this kind of behavior, right? Musa alayhi salam, it's impossible. So I told you, you're not going to be able to be patient with me. So now Musa alayhi salam is beginning to understand that, yeah, I think he's right. This is too much. I just can't, And then ultimately, the last one is kind of like Musa, Jan Booch, we say in rugby, He just kind of purposely said, okay, why didn't we ask, for some remittance? These people, we came to the town and they wouldn't, serve us and they wouldn't, this is the common courtesy that every stranger and traveler should get. They didn't offer that to us. And in spite of that, you fixed up their wall and all that. We could at least ask them now, pay us for that. That's the end. And Musa didn't say anything. He said, okay, yeah, right. Because this is just, and Khidr told him, he said, because Musa, you have knowledge, this comes in Hadith in Bukhari. You have knowledge that I don't have, and I have knowledge that you don't have. What knowledge did he have? Qadr. He had knowledge of the takwiniyat, as the ulama say. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's system. One is his irada shar'iyya. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders. This is what he's happy with. And this is what the behavior he wants us to, model ourselves in. But then there's another whole scenario of things that take place in the universe, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't love these things, but they have to happen. Like the surgeon doesn't love to cut up the patient, It's not like he's bloodthirsty or he's a sadist. But it's necessary for the ultimate benefit that's going to be achieved. So there has to be kufr to highlight the fact that there's iman. There has to be batil to highlight truth. There has to be day in contrast to night. So this one has created contrasting things. And it's all in his wisdom. Some we could perhaps try and understand, some totally beyond our understanding. In any case, when we have a belief in qadr, whatever happens to us, we accept it. Qadr Allah ma sha'a fa'al. And not only we accept it, we have the belief that ajaban li amr al-mu'min fi an-amr kulluhu khair. It's very amazing indeed, the affair of the people of Iman, because whatever happens to them, it's good for them. In asabahu sarra shakar fi kana khayran. If he gets good, then he does shukr, and thanks always, grateful. It's better for him. In asabahu darra sabr kana khayran. And if unfavorable circumstances, calamities, disasters even, he has patience. This is the will of Allah, and it's better for me. And it is. It's better. And everything is in our best interest, but we don't understand that. Somebody lost his job. Oh my God, my life is over. Committed suicide. It was destined. Relax. A person of Iman loses a job, and relax. And little did he realize that actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a better job prepared for him a month down the road. So there's always a better, there's something better coming out of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decision for his slave, if the slave accepts that. And even if it doesn't manifest in this world, it certainly will in the hereafter. So all of these articles of faith, they not only, require a belief, they also, as we say, tastad'i al-amal, they actually, draw towards a particular set of actions, behaviors, if you will. Did you want to do something? Yeah, I think. I can prove I've done this before, so it's one of the few things that I know how to do.
Power and sleep.
Power and sleep, yeah. Never. So it's never. So what's the problem?
It's like.
قدر الله ما شاء فعل.
Can you show in the spider?
Yeah, it's never supposed to.
Like you check on the spider.
It's all never. Anyway.
Can I check him?
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't on the notes, I never knew. So I was supposed to show up. So there's progress. Yeah. Well,
Let's fix that.
Rahman, what about presenter mode?
Huh?
Presenter mode?
I think it was on presenter.
It was. If it's just mirroring, that's maybe.
Take off.
okay. Actually, if we just keep pushing him a little bit, then sure. Okay. So these actions, they're the actions, sometimes they're actions of the heart, amal of the heart. That's also amal. Love of Allah, love of Rasulullah, desire of Jannah, shawq ila Jannah, fear from Jahannam. These are also actions, amal. So all of these belief sets produce actions. Sometimes the actions are the tongue, like dhikr, tilawat, enjoying right, forbidding evil. Yani, da'wah ila Allah is also an amal of the tongue. Gentle speech. So these are all actions. So faith and action, these are the things. Iman al Rasul. Sometimes they're on the limbs, salat, zakat, hajj, helping one another in praiseworthy works, ta'awun al-birri wa taqwa. So these are all actions which are manifest on the body. Now we come to this alamat al-iman. So as we mentioned, that was a question that came up. Can we kind of gauge, is there KPIs for iman? Key performance indicators? In fact, there is. And this ayah points to that. إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله إذا تليت عليهم إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله إذا تليت عليهم آياته زادتهم إيمانا. When the ayats of the Quran are read to them, they feel their iman increasing.
إذا ذكر الله وجلت قلوبهم.
Huh?
إذا ذكر الله وجلت قلوبهم.
إذا ذكر الله وجلت قلوبهم. إذا تليت عليهم آياته أحسن. So if they remember Allah or Allah is remembered, what is this? Right? So I'll just keep doing this.
I think I'll just take the charger out.
Huh?
I think I'll just take the charger out for now.
Okay. Maybe that's it. So if we remember Allah, now just look at us. When we say Allah, Subhanallah, we feel our iman, wajilat qulubuhum. We feel our hearts sort of trembling. Or if so, iman is good. If not, needs work. وإذا تليت عليهم آياته زادتهم إيمانا. Yeah. So when the ayats of the Quran are read to them, we hear the Quran, do we feel our iman rising? We feel sort of an injection into our iman. Then that means that we, iman is mashallah. If not, it means it's weak. Now, are you going to put a measure on that? It's 72, it's 83, or no, that's not the point. It's getting stronger, it's getting weaker, and it's all relative. So we can get an idea, right? So we can be our own, our own sort of indicators, right?
Where can you draw or decipher between what is called iman in the sense that it's...
What's that?
So how do you decipher between when you superimpose iman on the abstract, the theoretical side of things, or just the the 6 pillars of mental you mentioned, and then the spiritual aspect of it. I remember when I was there, he was mentioning, it's like I have this many proofs of God's existence, but I've never reached the level of those who were the basic people. They just believe in God and they have this high iman to it, which is.
So again, you can't put it on the scale and measure it and come up with a 2.371. It's not so.
No, but which is what iman is just discrete belief, or is it just iman is spiritual health?
Well, I don't know if I really understand your question. So first, come closer so I can hear you. Here you are.
He's eating out.
Huh? Yeah, stop eating someone. Yeah. Again.
When people use iman to describe both.
Both of what? Which are the two things you want to do?
Like the
discrete
beliefs, just like the discrete just belief, just like the abstract concepts. And then the iman as you also use it to describe, it's like a spiritual health meter, so to speak. So there's both. Which one's which?
It's both. there's a basis of iman, which is the iman al-ajuz, you know. Like, and then this is the Muslim that comes up in the books, you know. Suppose that the people, they just say they believe, you know, if you ask them why or give me a dalil, and I do, you know, and so that is valid, you know. But of course, if some type of doubt or shak enters in, then we have to, you know, treat that, you know, there's some kind of doubt. But it's both. There's a base iman, there's a basic tasdeeq. That's why they say that tasdeeq is basit. We don't want to get too technical as we lose context of what we're really trying to achieve here, you know. But there's this basic, you know, a point where we verify, we have this belief that yes, Allah exists. And then the nur of that expands and becomes stronger and stronger. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, you know, أرني كيف تحيي أولم تؤمن ولكن يتمنى قلبي. I want to, you know, be even higher levels of certainty. Although he was certain about it. So, you know, but I would suggest don't, you know, try and go too deep. It's not like something we, you know, discover in the laboratory. Right? These are metaphysics which the human brain is not going to be able to give us, but it can feel it. Wijdani, you can, you know, you can get the idea. Is that clear? Yeah, don't get too stretched out, otherwise you can really create unnecessary problems. Clear.
What if we try to quantify it like through what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains it as? Like for example, the Surah Al-Mu'minun, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. So you take those, you know,
yeah, well, that's what we're going to talk about here. There's these indicators which tell us that we have, it's there at all, or it's there in a good quantity, or it's weak. So that's sufficient. You know, you're not going to be able to, you know, okay, I got 2.3 kilos of iman, and right? It's not going to be like that, you know. But we can, and everybody would know. So you can feel. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and whatever is, if you see the Sharia and if you see the Quran and Sunnah, it's very generic. It's very easy to, you know, conceptualize. It's very easy to apply as well. Okay, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, do I feel something or not? Or do I go to sleep? When the Khatib on the Jummah, he starts mentioning Allah and mentioning Jannah, does it shake me up, or does I, you know, find myself? So if I'm not getting affected, that means my iman needs to be worked on. You know? And we can all feel that. We're going to do some exercises, hopefully we'll have time. We're going to do some exercises in Salat and Dhikr and Tilawat, and we're just going to try and see if we can raise the bar. And I think inshallah we will. Yeah.
So one quick question. So if you have weak iman, like, you know, you don't really feel when you hear something, are you still one of those successful people?
You see, just to have even an iota of iman is success to an extent. Success is relative. There are people who get in the last, you know, entrance, you know, the last enter is in the Jannah, and you have this Sabit al-Khairat, you know. So everybody with iman is going to ultimately succeed. The level of that success, of course, dependent on that, on the level of iman, which produces a level of amal, which is the criteria. At the end of the day, we would have actually entered into all of that khair with the rahmat of Allah. لا يدخل أحدكم الجنة بعمله ولا أنت يا رسول الله ولا أنا إلا يتغمدني الله برحمته. Nobody's going to go into paradise, you know, by his amal. Not even you, ya Rasulullah, not even me. إلا أن يتغمدني, except that Allah will shroud me in his mercy. So then jazaa bima kanu ya'malun, where does that fit in? So as a reward and recompense for what they used to do, their amal. So entrance into Jannah, our amal doesn't, you know, equal it. But once you're in, you get into the club through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, you know, rahmah. Then according to our amal, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's tawfiq, by his tawfiq we're able to do, then to various stations. And Jannah is darajat, you know, and just as Jahannam is darakat. Jahannam isn't the same for everybody. Also, Pharaoh's, And Jahannam is not like the average, kafir who didn't create as much mitzvah as he did. Is that clear? Yeah. Okay, so let's carry on here. So these are some of the indicators, right? And actually there's more things which are mentioned as well. وَعَلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. They depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do we know that? So when we're faced with an issue, where does our minds go? I'm facing economic problems. I need a new job. I need to make an investment. I need to do this. I need to. So if my mind goes, Ar-Razaq Allah, oh Allah, this is the issue, you know very well what's going on, help me. And once we put our trust on him, we depend on him, he's going to get me out of it. Do we have that kind of thiqah, as we say, we have that trust in Allah or not? People of Iman, real Iman, that's what they do. That's how they feel. So where are we with that? We can gauge ourselves. Now, and they establish their prayers. How particularly are we in establishing our prayers? We can judge that for ourselves, right? From what they earn, they spend some of it. So how do we stand there? How do we feel about what we're spending? Do we feel like, Alhamdulillah, tawfiq to spend in the way of Allah will accept this and reward me? So these are signs that our iman is there and it's intact and it's in a good state and it's in a good, condition. If not, it means we need to do work, right? Doesn't mean we don't have iman. It means because if we didn't have iman, we wouldn't be concerned in the first place. But it means that we need to work. We don't have that level of iman that we could and should have, so we need to work on it. Okay? So trembling of the heart, increase of iman, these are the KPIs, you can say, that are mentioned in these ayats and sort of okay? Okay, so how do we do it? Let's look how do we do it. Al-Iman yazidu bil-ta'a wa yanqus bil-ma'siyah. This is the qaida kulliyah, this is the overall principle. The more we obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consciously, the more it's going to generate iman. It's a very important principle. So if I offer salat, it's going to help build my iman. I'm going to remember Allah. I'm going to, observe His order, whatever His order. Remain aloof from His prohibitions. Every action like that is going to elevate the iman, provided obviously it's done for Him, not just because it's a ritual or because somebody's watching or whatever, but actually for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And juxtaposed to that, we yanqus bil ma'siyah. And every act of disobedience destroys iman. So wrong actions of the tongue or the eye or the hand or the heart, for that matter, they will bring about deterioration of iman. A black spot comes on the heart. And another sin, another black spot, another sin, another black. And the heart ultimately becomes black. And when that happens, so then, we don't even recognize what's right, we don't recognize what's evil. This is what's happened to man today. He can't even recognize what's right and wrong. Even though, to a large extent, basic rights and wrongs are part of human nature. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Allah has put in the human nature some basic understanding of some basic rights and wrongs, truths and falsehoods, good and bad. A human being in his normal state would know that truth is something that feels good. Lying just doesn't sit right, doesn't feel good even. So, but when the heart becomes blackened, as the hearts have become today because of the environment, then that natural fitrati, that's also destroyed. So iman increases by any act of obedience and it decreases by any act of disobedience. Okay, that's number one. Okay, last night we did who's there last night? I think only two people. None of the ladies were there last night, huh? Yeah. So last night we did a exercise with the Ubudiyya tree, which is actually the diagram of the tree. And so to go into that and do this exercise would be, take a lot of time. We'd have to go through the whole thing, which we don't have time for. But what we would like to do, from this, we came to the conclusion that the first, or one of the first levels or first stages of Iman building, when we listen to Dawat and when we're invited towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we start to think about Allah. And when we start thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this process develops Iman. And it's one of the most important processes, and therefore the Quran is inviting us to do that. So we'll move on from that. Fiqh. Okay, I have a little, let's see if we can do this. I have another presentation I'll show you. Hopefully this comes off. Okay. So this presentation, what I want you to do is just, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to flash a number of slides and just open your minds, open your hearts, stop all thinking, right? And just absorb what you're going to see, okay? Is that clear? Okay. Can we just turn off the lights? Lights. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. تبارك الله أحسن الخالقين. الله أكبر. So now we have an exercise that we want to do. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as I mentioned earlier, He invites us to think about His creation. إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. That in the creation of the heavens and the earth, changing the day and the night, and all of actually anything that you look at, there are signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not only His existence, but of His magnificence and all His attributes and His wonderful names. For those ulul albab, the people of lub, the people of mental capacity who use it for the purpose for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it, which is to primarily think about these kind of things, not simply how to develop new gadgets, and new digital whatever, but primarily to use our intelligence to understand more about the Creator and our relationship to Him. And so this is mentioned many times in the Quran and also in the Sunnah, to engage in pondering over the creation, because pondering over the creation is going to guide us to the Creator. So we're going to do a little exercise now, inshallah. Do we have time? I think we do, right?
40 minutes.
40 minutes. But before we have to break, we got at least a half an hour?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay. So the exercise is that we're going to go outside. Now, ladies will go, and I'll need some assistance here. We need for the ladies to go one side and men to go the other side. What we're going to do is just go outside and look at things. We're going to do tafakkur. So ladies, which side will they go, and men, which side will they go?
There's ladies' entrance, there's men.
Ladies' entrance, and then they can go. Is there some sort of nature out there, or there's some kind of...
There's a playground and trees on the side.
Yeah. Okay, and then the men need to have something like that as well. So where will they go?
And this way.
Okay, so you'll manage that, right?
On the side of the door.
Okay,
Do I have a choice?
so you manage that. So ladies, you know which side to go? Okay, so what we're going to do is, now this exercise is an individual. Nobody's allowed to talk to anybody else, okay? So everybody, without talking to anyone, without turning your phones off, I don't want to see anybody with a phone, anything, because this is a very powerful exercise if we do it right, and it requires focus. So what we're going to do is, everyone is going to go singularly. We don't talk with anyone, we're not going to be with anyone, and we're going to shut off our minds and everything from all the things. We're going to shut off our phones, and we're going to go out and just find anything of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation that your eye falls on, and you just look at it and ponder over it. And we want to, through this exercise, look at this particular thing that you're looking at and identify three things. Number one, the qudrat of Allah. Try and identify or try a manifestation of Allah's power, His qudrat, in that thing, whatever it is. And then also try and ascertain some hikmah, some wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is displaying in that thing. Something of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom that you might be able to sort of, ascertain from that thing. And then, what ni'mah, what special blessing is in that thing for us or for anyone, or how is it in the general overall, in the overall scheme of things, how is that the presence of that thing a blessing, a ni'mah? Okay? And after we're going to do that, we're going to give you a specific time, and we're going to come back and then we'll listen to some of your observations. Okay? So 3 things that we want to identify. Is this clear, everyone? Qudrat of Allah, the hikmah of Allah, and ni'mat of Allah. Is that clear? Okay, so it's now, according to my watch, it's 53, 11, 12, 53, okay? So at 1:10, 53, at 1:05, I'm sorry, at 1:05, everybody start coming over. It's not going to take a long time. Just go out there and find something, focus on it, see the Qudrat of Allah. And if you like, write it down. What do I think of the Qudrat? Hikmah of Allah, ni'mat. And then come back without talking to anybody. Going out, come back, everybody by themselves. Okay? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
You guys know your way out.
Okay, ladies, all ladies also, please do this exercise. You'll find it very good, inshallah. So your wife also came? Okay. So anyone else is coming? Okay. Sure. So Saturdays are regular class now?
Still doing their class right now next week.
Huh?
We only have class once a week. So we kind of have a couple day group session. He has to get assigned some homework throughout the week, so we try to read it ahead. And class we just come in this room and we'll read it, we have everybody. We'll do like a 15-minute discussion, summary of findings, and then receipts.
So this is what does?
Huh? It's finishing after the week. Continuing on unfulfilled portions. It's going through the unfulfilled portions.
Sure.
So you do the beginning of the week, you assign some 7 or 8 minute domain discussions like coming up. So you have Allahu Akbar, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله
حي على الصلاة حي على حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
نسأل الله العافية في الدنيا والآخرة. نسألك العافية في الدنيا والآخرة. صلى الله عليه وسلم.
It should program after this.
After this, we're going to go back to the place where we lodged and rest, I suppose.
Okay.
And then there's a program at 6.
So you can't charge the computer first.
Huh?
You can charge the computer now before. Stuff like that.
So, did we figure out what's going on? Some of those is charging. Is it? It should. Actually, we shouldn't really need to charge it because it's got a really good battery. So it's probably fine.
So, we're done. What were we done to?
Hmm?
What were we done? Or do you think is there anything after that?
Up to 2, no? Or no?
It's up to you. Because or
No, it's up to you all.
15 minutes.
I'm here.
Without really praising it, there's 2 nights and stuff. That's really.
Well, I was under the impression it was up to 2.
No, I understand what I'm saying.
Huh?
By the time everybody prays, you're gonna have like 15 minutes after the or 10 minutes after the it's already reconvened.
Not sure. Yeah, whatever actually was well, it's up to everybody, you know. I'm here.
If you create a referendum,
Huh?
just create a sort of referendum.
So how many of you would like to extend a little bit?
It's meant to be, I think, probably an end of Dhuhr. Do you guys want to go a little after Dhuhr?
After namaz?
Yeah.
Will you stop here and come back after namaz?
I'm asking.
If should they continue until 2 or stop it?
I mean, there's still a lot we can do. It's up to people if they want to if they want to cut off at Dhuhr and let's call it a day, or if you'd like to come back after Dhuhr and do a few more exercises.
the projection right now is Dhuhr is cap.
Sure, we can come back. Yeah, we are here. We can come back after Nawaz.
Does anybody have to go?
I have to do that.
Okay, let's see. The ladies are really, they got carried away. I hope they didn't run away.
They had one chance.
Oh, assalamu alaikum. Kayf al-hal? Yeah, you remember me?
If you're not asking, you went to Mecca, but then why Pakistan specifically? Like, I've actually noticed it, especially
Why you hating on Pakistan?
Huh?
Why you Egyptian hating on Pakistan?
Actually, no, I would like to go there, in fact. But I've seen, like, especially in myself, that I've studied in more than one place.
Huh?
They tend to have a lot more of an open mind than because like people that are studying in one place, they tend to have a little more of, I want to say, a fanatic or snobbish. But they've only taken from one school of thought. So especially people that studied around, they tend to be a little more open minded.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you seen that? I mean, also why specifically Pakistan?
Your wife is Pakistani?
Oh,
yeah.
No, enough reason. Huh?
No, what would you say? What was the last thing you said?
Like, why specifically studying there? Like in Morocco, Egypt, anywhere else?
I went to all these places. I was in Morocco, I was in Yemen, I was in Saudi Arabia, I was in Pakistan.
So you've had all.
So I think the key thing is in the intro you mentioned you were sent to Pakistan. You used those words.
Yeah,
What's the
actually,
story?
after I was sent to Pakistan as a teacher, and then also I got married there, which kind of grounded me. And actually, Pakistan is unique in the Muslim world in that after traveling all over the Muslim world, especially the Arab countries, actually they're so oppressive, you can't do anything. But in Pakistan, you can do anything, right, wrong, otherwise. So that's particularly at that time. That was in the 1980s, and so you can really do a lot in Pakistan, like the madaris and religious activities. There's no restrictions like in Egypt. It goes on there. Saudi Arabia, you can't say a single thing. In all these countries, even from Morocco all the way across, all these countries, it's the same paradigm. And that's a long political and treatise on that, but we don't get into that. I think everybody knows pretty much about that. But Pakistan is unique in that it's the one place where it still has you can do what you want, particularly Ahl al-Ilm and Ahl al-Din. You have a free hand to do things there. So that was unique. It still is. They're trying to stifle it there as well, but it's pretty difficult to do because they have a tradition of, the ulama and the people of Deen don't connect with the government. They don't accept anything from the government. Whereas everywhere else, government owns everything, right? You can't do anything. In Egypt, and even Azhar is now. When Azhar was taken over by the government, the whole thing changed. And my teachers in Makkah, who are Azharis, the pre-Abdel Nasser takeover and the post-Abdel Nasser, they were talking about, the huge change. It was obviously once a government has control of the, these madaris and the, religious institutions, then of course, they have to serve to some extent or the other the wishes of the government. And so obviously it's a huge corruption. So Pakistan and India, even for that matter, Bangladesh also, the whole Indian subcontinent, they have a tradition of istighna on hukumat and all that. So it's unique in that sense. Every place has its pros and cons, but that was probably the major, after going through all these countries, it was the one place where we could do what we wanted to do. It still is pretty much like that.
You would recommend somebody studying one place only?
It depends on, Imam Malik never left Medina. Why? And he never had to. Everyone was coming to Medina. We had it, and when I was first in Pakistan, we had students from all over the world who come here. I had students from 20, 30 countries. Originally Minuri town, and we didn't have these facilities in other places. We didn't have nothing here. It was just one of the things I lived here in the first place. Okay, so let's do the exercise quickly. Okay, did everybody identify something? Who would like to share their observations? So let's have one from the men's side, one from the women's side. Okay, go ahead.
The three was.
Okay, kid, do we have a microphone?
Oh, yes. we do.
So they can hear, or you can give in mine.
No, maybe use.
The ladies have one? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
What were the three? Power?
Oh, I think he switched the system off when after he made it then.
Okay, go ahead, yeah.
Let me switch it.
Okay, everybody pay attention here? Yeah, go ahead.
Power. First one was power. Second one was.
Yeah. Second was hikmah. Third was ni'mah. Yeah.
So,
You can stand up, you can sit down, wherever you're comfortable. No takalluf.
Hello. Okay.
Yeah.
So I found a tree when I went outside,
Okay.
and the tree was like right in front of the door.
Yeah.
And it was obviously because it's autumn, the leaves were like yellow. So the first thing I thought about when I was thinking about the power of Allah was how something can come up and be that big from nothing, essentially. So at one point that tree wasn't there and it was just a seed, and then over years it just got bigger and bigger. And then for the wisdom, one of the things that I was thinking about was that tree is not just there to collect water, but it's actually like a home for certain animals or insects.
It's a whole ecosystems connected to trees. We have a whole talk on that, but anyway, yeah, okay.
And then for the ni'mah of the actual tree itself, the first thing that came to mind was that I've been here in the summer when we've had drives, like food drives with Al Misbah, and when it gets really hot, like you want to go to shade. And so I literally went under that tree once for its shade. And so that was kind of one thing I was thinking.
About shade, it's a great ni'mah for everyone. So, okay, wait a minute, we're not done yet. So did you ever see that in trees before?
Yes.
You have seen it, identified all those things before.
Oh, not like that systematically, no.
So this is the first tree that you've seen, actually.
Like that, yeah.
So let's think about that. So all our life we've been seeing trees, but today we looked at a tree differently. Am I correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So what happened? What happened today that wasn't happening yesterday?
I was looking at it through a different lens.
Fikr. Tafakkur. We're looking at it like this, tafakkur. So one example from any of the ladies would like to share? Ladies always have something more, awesome to say usually than the men.
No offense to Allah.
Would anyone like to? Yeah, go ahead. Bismillah.
I apologize. I never went outside because I'm already so cold. But I was looking at my hand.
Okay.
And the Qudra, like how, when I was born, how clumsy it was, like my kid's hand, and how Allah enabled it to write, to do, to cook, I don't know, tons of food. And my profession, it's very intricate. And then it's such a blessing. I mean, I don't know what I would do even if my two fingers are tied together.
Yeah.
And the wisdom, I mean, I don't know, every little function is not even known to me. I don't even know how it will function, but it's still, it works perfectly to a degree that I'm not even aware that I'm doing it. It's just my hand, but,
it's, as you said, it's such a great display of qudrat and hikmat and ni'mat. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right?
just in myself.
So again, how long have you been having this hand?
All my life.
So did we look at our hand yesterday like that? No. So what happened today?
The three categories.
We looked at our hand with fikr. Are you getting the idea, everyone? So actually, all these things are all around us, but we don't open our eyes and see them. Yes, we see them physically, but we don't see them with the eye of our hearts, with the eye of fikr. We call this in Arabic the ayn al-i'tibar, to take lesson from things. Look at things and what's the deeper message, what's the deeper lesson. How by looking at this thing, it connects me with its creator, because ultimately everything is a creation and it points to the creator. وَفِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ لَهُ آيَةٌ تَدُلُّ عَلَىٰ أَنَّهُ وَاحِدٌ. As one poet says, in every single thing there is a sign that points to the fact that he is one. So this is a very important aspect of Iman building. When we will open our eyes and look at things and relate to it, it's a kind of very sublime dhikr. That's why they say dhikr and fikr. Dhikr and fikr. The dhikr points to tafakkur and tafakkur points to the dhikr. And how much time do we have left?
15 minutes.
Before Salat?
15 minutes.
Let's just see some of the aqwal of the ulama. There's some amazing things that our scholars have said regarding fikr, tafakkur. شجرة المعرفة تسقى بماء الفكرة. Abu Abbas ibn Masruq al-Tusi, he says, the tree of Marifah is having knowledge, knowing Allah, so basically, in simple terms, to know Allah. And how do we know? We think about all these things. It helps us to know Allah, and in doing so, the people who know Allah, they love Allah, and they love Allah, and they get connected, and they're always connected with Allah. So the tree of Marifah is irrigated by the water of fikr. This process is very important for developing Marifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By the way, I don't share this presentation. If you want to take a picture of any of the slides, feel welcome. Alamat al-Mu'min Arba. This is a very interesting thing. We're talking about the KPIs. So here's some KPIs. He says, Alamat al-Mu'min Arba. Kalamuhu dhikr, samtuhu tafakkur, نظره عبرة وعمله بر. Shaykh Abu Bakr al-Warraq, rahimahullah ta'ala. He says the signs of a believer are four. His speech is dhikr. When he talks, it's dhikr of Allah. One way or the other, it's connected to dhikr of Allah. His silence is fikr, tafakkur, the kind of thinking we were just talking about. When he's silent, and this was a very salient characteristic of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yani tul samt, tafakkur. His sight is ibra, and that's what we were talking about. We see with the ayn al-i'tibar, ibra. We look at things, we look behind the scenes, we look and take the lessons and wisdom and what's to be extracted from what we're seeing, not simply the physical shape. And his action is bir. And as a result of that, his actions are, because they're based on Iman, which has been developed by this tafakkur, because he's a person of Iman, so obviously his actions are righteous. He's not engaged in wrong things. شغل العارف ثلاثة أشياء. للنظر إلى معبوده مستأنسا به والملاحظة لمنه وفوائده شاكرا به والتذكر لذنبه معترفا به منيبا تائبا إليه. الشاب الشجاع الكرماني رحمه الله. So he says, the engagement of the arif, the person who knows, the person has marifah, the arif of Allah, the person who knows Allah, is connected with Allah, he is engaged in three things. Number one, in focusing his gaze on the one he worships, intimately attaching to him. Okay, since we don't see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly, so how do we see Allah? One of the ways is, as we're talking about, by pondering over his creation, which is directing us to Allah. Indirectly, in other words. Gazing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indirectly by focusing and gazing and being astounded by his creation. Okay? And intimately thereafter attaching himself to his creator and sustainer and benefactor. Okay. And number two, an observation of his bounties and benefits, thanking him. That's why we talked about the ni'mah. Everything you see around, this is all the ni'mah of Allah. This is one of the greatest lessons I learned from one of my most important teachers in Makkah. Every single thing in ta'zeem and ni'mah, which was a sifat of Rasulullah, every little thing that he had, he would thank Allah. He would be so full of gratitude for things that we take for advantage. So we don't take anything, just like that. Every single thing we look at and we appreciate the ni'mat and the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us by each and everything. And three, and in recollecting his sins and acknowledging them, returning in repentance to him. Now, on the one hand, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's side, all of this beneficence is coming our way. Ni'mat. All the ni'mats coming to one human being cannot be accounted for by the total accounting systems of the world. However, our response to that, Allah is dealing with us with such beneficence, and our response to that beneficence is generally what? Ingratitude, negligence, nonchalantly, kind of. So the Arif Billah, he realizes that my response to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's beneficence is so lacking and so, under par. So he continuously reminds himself of this in any of his omissions and commissioned sins. So he's always reflecting on those, acknowledging them, and asking forgiveness for them, and returning in repentance to Allah. These are the three main activities of the people who know and love and are connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah may make us among them. Shaykh Shahid al-Shujaa al-Karmani. Now this last one, I'm going to ask you, what do you make out of this? I'm just trying to say this. العبرة أن تجعل كل حاضر غائبا والفكرة أن تجعل كل غائب حاضرا. Ibrat is to make every seen unseen. And fikra is to make every unseen seen. So what do you make of that?
So the things that to make everything seen, unseen. So basically, you see, your vision transcends the material.
Exactly. Whatever you're seeing, you're actually seeing the.
You see through it. You see the unseen.
Right. Just as you did just now. You saw the tree, but you didn't really look at the tree. You looked at the maker and the creator behind the tree, the unseen. Okay, fikr is to make every unseen
seen. So basically, it's materializing, or I guess, augmenting or making the belief stronger in the thing that is unseen.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not seen, right? And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, "A'bud rabbaka ka'annaka tarahu." Worship Allah as though you see him. So in the eyes of your head, you won't see him in the world. Hopefully, inshallah, Allah, because the people of Fawz and Falah will see him in the Akhirat. but in the dunya you don't see that. But with the eyes of the heart, with the spiritual eye, we can, as though we're looking at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the Sahabis was asked by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Kayfa asbahta?" He said, "Asbahtu mu'minan haqqan ya Rasulullah." How did you wake up? I woke up as a true mu'min, ya Rasulullah. Ajib. So the Prophet said, for every statement like that, there's some proof. What's the proof of your statement? He said, because I have spent my nights in praying to Allah, my days in fasting, and it's as though I'm looking at the paradise and the people enjoying in it. It's as though I'm seeing the Jahannam, the people being tortured in it. It's as though I'm looking at the Arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in front of me. So the Prophet said, yeah, you got it, keep on it. So these are all unseen things, but it's as though he's actually seen them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us tawfiq. Now if we'll continue this fikr and dhikr, inshallah, and continues. So inshallah, step by step, we'll move in that direction. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take us there. So I think it's about time for salat. How many people, a quick vote and then we'll decide. How many people would like to have a little more session after Salat? Or how many of us would like to just continue and call it a day up to Salat? Okay, first of all, how many would like to end it at time of Salat? No, La haya fi din. Zohar, call it a day.
I need to go.
You need to go. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Absolutely. Anybody else? Ladies who like to, you need to call it a day? Okay. And how many people would like to actually stay? Okay. So why don't we do this? Abdurrahman, you're the main person that.
Conflict of interest. I have no
conflict
of interest. I have no vote in this matter.
Okay, you're prepared to stay as well.
I have no choice whether to stay or.
I
have no choice either way. So.
You're not helping me here.
No, I have no vote. I can't vote.
You can't vote.
No, we're not asking you to vote, but if we stay, what I'm going to suggest is those who have to go, they have to go. That's fine. And those who want to stay, they can stay. We can have maybe a little more session. Does that sound good?
We won't cut electricity from you after the salah. That's what you're asking. We won't cut the electricity after salah. That's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay, no, we won't cut it off, don't worry.
Okay. Is that okay? Is that all right? Is there any issue as far as the... Sure.
No, that's just yours.
Okay, fine. So we'll do that. Now, the last question is, how much time would you like to spend after Salah? Let's do one exercise. We'll do an exercise of Salat. After Salat, we'll do an exercise of Khushu and Salat. How's that sound? And then we'll call it a day. Okay? Okay, so right after Salat, inshallah, we'll come back and it'll be about a half an hour session, inshallah. Okay? Subhanakallah wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
No. I had a question.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. What's the next exercise?
Huh?
What's the next exercise?
What's the exercise?
Jumping jacks.
Huh?
Jumping jacks like everybody else.
You have no choice to stay. It's twice. I'm just playing. That's amazing.
We'll see soon enough, inshallah. The salat is going to be salat. خير الموضوع الصلاة. خير الموضوع. خير. So we should also consider that. Okay, where are the ladies? Ladies are usually the first.
But do you need the recording by any chance?
Huh?
Do you need the recording after?
I don't need it.
Okay.
Somebody does. I don't.
Some guest speakers they asked for the recording.
Huh?
Some guest speakers asked for it after, you know.
No.
Okay, sure.
There are many versions of this. Is this on? Hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. 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 Assalamu alaikum. So Bismillah, we'd like to get started. And we're waiting for the ladies. Apparently there was 4 or 5 ladies that were supposed to return. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala sayyidil mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. So since this is all about Iman and Amal, and of course, as we're going to see, the most important Amal of the Muslim, after his Iman is Salat. And we're going to see this, the first thing that's going to be reckoned for as well. So we need to pay very close attention to Salat, not only in simply performing it, but how do we perform it, inshallah, which is what the exercise is going to be today, inshallah. So again, looking at the importance, to get an idea of the importance of these things. So again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون إلى قوله تعالى والذين هم على صلواتهم يحافظون. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that again, the believers have succeeded. And the first characteristic of these believers who have succeeded is the fact that they are humble in the salat. They have khushu' in the salat. They're offering a salat with khushu' and khudu', which is a conglomerate of fear and reverence and love and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the feeling of the presence of the divine in front of them when they're standing. And so, approaching that appropriately. Hello. Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, you try to use this camera.
No.
That fix it.
All right, we'll just use that. Okay, hello. So, obviously, this is very critical. Not only do we offer salat, we offer salat with khushu' and khudu', with this characteristic of khushu'. Similarly, in the salat tanal in fahshay wal munkar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, verily salat prevents from all that is lewd and reprehensible. And Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala who mentions that salat, which does not forbid, doesn't create a resistance, doesn't stop you from these kind of actions, it's not really a salat. So that answers the question that people have, when they hear this. So we see people, they're offering 5 times prayers, even offering tahajjud and all these things, and they're doing these wrong things. Well, it points to the fact that salat is not the salat that it should be. If it was what it should be, it would have this impact. So if it's not having this impact, it's not the level of salat that we're looking for. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us. Okay. فخلف من بعدهم خلف أضاعوا الصلاة واتبعوا الشهوات فسوف يلقون غيا. أعوذ بالله تعالى. This is okay. We'll just use this one. Leave that. Yeah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions from among the former peoples, and they were succeeded by a posterity, the former ummats of Muslims, for example, Bani Israel and the such. So they were succeeded by a posterity who squandered away the salat and followed their shahwat, their desires, and hence they will meet with the consequence of deviation, ghayya. Ghayya is also mentioned by some of the Mufassirin that it's a pit of hell, a pit in the hell which is full with the pus and the blood of the people who are being punished therein. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. In other words, not only hell, but a very wretched part of hell. So those who squander away the salat, so it's a very serious thing. So offering it is going to have such positive impacts, and not observing it properly is going to have such negative impacts as well. And in hadith, there's so many hadith that you can go on and on and on. So from among the very important hadith of salat, أول ما يحاسب به العبد يوم القيامة من أعماله الصلاة فإن صلحت فقد أفلح ونجح وإن فسدت فقد خاب وخسر. The first of man's deeds to be called to account on the day of judgment will be salat. So after iman and kufr, now the first thing that Muslims will have to reckon for is their salat. So obviously that's something that all of us should be have as a prime priority in our lives, in improving our salat, looking after salat, establishing our salat. As was mentioned, so they not only they are khashi in the salat, they offer the salat with khushu', but they also ala salawatihim yuhafidun, they protect their salat. So in other words, they plan their day and their life around salat, not the other way around. How many of us plan our day every day? What's the first thing we write down? That's really very good. If so, then very good. But usually what happens is, I have this meeting, I have to attend that. But first we have a meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the first thing. So first thing we need to do in our daily programming is to schedule, mark out the times, block out the times of salat. And mind you, there should be, of course, enough time to have a proper wudu, as we're going to see when we start our wudu. That's the beginning. Tahara is the beginning of the salah. So having enough time for proper, tahara, wudu, and sunan, and adhkar, and all that. So blocking up enough time to give it its due. And then we schedule everything else around our salat, because everything else is secondary. Allahu Akbar. So if the salat is found perfect, then we will pass and succeed. Also in another riwayat, then everything else will be accepted in terms of the amal. Salat is acceptable, then zakat will be acceptable, hajj will be acceptable, sadaqah, etc., etc. If salat is found unacceptable, then all the other amal are going to be found accordingly. It's extremely critical. As-salatun nur. These are very short statements of Rasulullah regarding salat. As-salat nur. Salat is light. As-salat khayru mawdu'. Salat is the best affair, the best thing we can be engaged in. الصلاة عماد الدين من أقامها أقام الدين من هدمها هدم الدين. Salat is the pillar of deen. Who upholds it, upholds the deen. And who destroys it, destroys the deen. And so again, khushu', it's not just about establishing salat, but establishing a salat, not only its physical, its outward physical, motions and structure, but the inner, as we say, al-kayfiyya al-batiniyya, the inner feelings and the inner, conditions of the heart and the mind during salat is very critical. And again, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Those are in their salat, they are submissive, humble. They're full of the khushu' is this very comprehensive term. It's a condition of the mind and heart, the heart particularly, in the presence of the divine. So, when the presence, of some big shot in the world, or our boss, or when we're small children, our parents, or what. So how do we feel? We feel very humbled. We feel the awe of being in the presence of such a big authority in our lives. So about the creator of the universe. So having that consciousness that who we're standing in front of will produce, that. So that's part of dhikr and fikr, and all of this is going to impact our salat as well, right? So if we enter into salat with an empty mind and heart, then we can imagine what kind of salat it's going to be. If our minds and our hearts are full of the alam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we enter into salat, it's going to just even magnify the process even. You had a question?
Yeah, could we incorporate like breathing techniques and deep breaths and those types of things in salat?
I wouldn't suggest in salat, because that's not, you can't enter anything new like that in salat. But there are methods that they do in breathing, in dhikr and adhkar, breathing in, illallah, la ilaha, out, get everything out other than Allah. Breathing, no harm in that. But I wouldn't do that in salat. Do all those kind of things outside. You enter into salat, and whatever is masnoon, whatever is mentioned in hadith, we focus on that. And our hearts should be, Qibla is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we're prepared, if we're in that state of heart and mind when we enter into the masjid, then it's just going to enhance it all the more. If we come into the masjid looking at our phones, and looking at our appointments, and so all that stuff, all that baggage is going to be carried into our salat. So it's going to be Allahu Akbar, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, what about that? And so obviously this salat is not going to stop rude and iniquitous action. It's not going to get us close to Allah. As a matter of fact, we're going to see a salat without khushu' could be a means of distancing ourselves. Suppose, you have an appointment with your boss, and he's got some very important instructions to give you. So you come in there and he's talking to you and he's really, focused, and you're looking at your phone, looking at your watch, and what's wrong with you? He actually brought you in to give you a promotion and give you a higher level of authority, and you came in and paid no attention. Get out. So that salat is mentioned. How we're going to see it thrown in the face, like a dirty rag, So we need to be cognizant not only of the salat we're performing, but how we're performing it. Allah give us all tawfiq. Maintain with care the obligatory prayers. Be vigilant about them. And in particular, the middle prayer. And there's different opinions, and the most popular opinion is Salat al-Asr. Perhaps because during Salat al-Asr, people get involved this, that, and people tend to either miss it or delay it. Particularly ladies in the house, busy in their chores, getting dinner ready and all that. So, right? Being very careful of, the time, the word Asr. It's good for the ladies to, if you're not attending the masjid, then you have actually the timetables of the time of the salat that's established in the masjid. And we in the house, ladies in the house, time of salat, when the iqamas, we also call our own iqamah, right? So that we don't, otherwise, okay, let me finish that, then I'll finish this. Just let me, and that let me just, it goes on until turnaround time is gone, particularly in the winter time when the salats go by very quickly. So This is all part of protecting the salat, protecting the times, protecting the khushu, and all the other aspects and dimensions of it. And stand before Allah devotedly and obedient, qaniteen, qunuts. إن الرجل ينصرف ما كتب له إلا عشر صلاته وتسعه وثمنه إلى آخره. So somebody stands in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and goes through all that trouble, takes out the time, goes to the masjid. However, he doesn't get the reward for the salat or the benefits that he could have gotten, except maybe a 10th or a 9th or an 8th or a 7th, or depending on what? Depending on the khushu and the khudu, the sincerity of these inner qualities of the salat. Right? And Nabi Sallallahu gave us a wonderful prescription. And he says, Salli salat muwaddi' ka'annaka tarahu fi lam takun tarahu fi innahu yarak. Offer the salat of the one saying farewell. Suppose the angel of death comes up to you and says, okay, Hashim, you have 5 minutes. You have time for 2 rakats. And then you're gone. So how would we offer that salat? If we knew this is our last salat, how would we offer it? You can imagine. Oh my God. And however, the fact of the matter is, one of these salats is going to be our last salat. It might be this one. It could very well be. Right? Nobody knows. So this is, Allahu Akbar. This is, if we would just keep cognizant of that. Sometimes imams, they mention that. Sallu salat al-muwaddi'. It's a good practice, Remind ourselves before we actually say takbir that this may be our last salat. How are we going to offer it? As though you see Him, and this is more elucidation, and offer your last salat as though you see Allah. As the hadith of Jibreel, worship Allah as though you see Him. If you don't see Him, at least be cognizant, totally cognizant, that He's seeing you into the depths of your heart. So how do we acquire khushu and khudu in our salat? So since we've understood now the importance and how risky it is, the very dangerous thing to not be offering our salat as we should, and what a great boon if we do. So how do we do it? So in doing so, one of our pious ancestors was asked, how does he offer his salat? Very interesting. And so let us just see how this individual offers his salat. The Shaykh Hatim al-Balkhi rahimahullah ta'ala. So he says, when the time of salat approaches, and we're not talking about, he hasn't actually started praying yet. He says, when the time approaches, time is coming towards salat. So with utmost serenity and perfection, I perform wudu. So starting with wudu, which most of us are not really paying attention to what we're doing. And even, we should say Bismillah, and we should also have an intention and kind of feel, because what's happening is our sins are being, as the hadith says, sins are being removed from the mouth, from the face, from the eyes, from the head even, from the hands, from the feet. So it's an act of ubudiyya, it's an act of worship, the wudu itself, even though its basic function is to prepare us to be able, in purity, to present ourselves in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it in itself, since it is a medium towards the worship of Allah, it becomes a part of the worship itself. So performing our wudu in that consciousness, and this is what Shaykh is saying. So this is how he says he does it. So with all serenity and perfection, he performs his wudu. So he's starting his salat with his wudu, basically. When reaching the place of salat, and by the way, once making wudu, he would remain in dhikr, in moving towards salat. فَإِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ فِي الصَّلَاةِ مَا دَامَ يعني الصَّلَاةِ يَحْبِسُهُ وَيَمْشِي إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. And also when he's going to salat, when he's waiting for salat, after he's performed his salat, so he remains actually in a state as though he's in salat. So we have made wudu, we're going even towards the masjid, we're in dhikr and fikr, and we're actually as though we're already in salat. And then when reaching the place of salat, I stand with the utmost composure as though I am facing Kaaba. My feet are on the sirat over Jahannam, And Jannat is on my right and Jahannam is on my left. And this is what he's envisioning now before he says Allahu Akbar. Right? Allahu Akbar. Then he considers Malak al-Maut is on his head. Like Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Sallu Salat al-Muwaddi, like the last salat of your life. This is it. So he's considering each salat is actually his last. And perceiving this to be my last salat, only Allah knows the state of my heart. This is actually what's going on in my heart. I can't explain that. And then I say Allahu Akbar with utmost humility, pondering over the meanings of the Quran, humbly and submissively performing ruku' and sujood. Some of you would say, well, I don't know the Arabic language, but if you ponder over what you're saying, much of it you'll already understand. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Everybody understands that, right? Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawm. So much of the Quran, even the other surahs, if you pay close attention, you'll be surprised how much we can actually ascertain. And even if we don't, we have this cognizance, this is Allah's kalam. You know? And so we're focused on that, pondering over the meanings. And if you don't know, it's just pondering over the fact that we're listening to the kalam of Allah, Jalla Jalaluhu. Performing ruku and sujood, continuing serenely with composure throughout my salat to its completion, hoping for its acceptance by Allah's grace and rahmah, and fearing for its rejection. Even though I'm doing the best I can possibly do, still I don't know Allah's going to accept it or reject it. And so he was asked, so how long have you been offering prayers like that? He said, for the last 30 years. So can you imagine the impact of 30 years of salat like that, what's going to have on somebody? So now we would like to try and have one salat like that today. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to leave this up on the board. You can just kind of look at that. You can think about the other things that we read about, you know, Salat al-Muwaddi and all these. And inshallah, it's now 2:05, okay? So we'll take 10 minutes, because somebody might, if you need a refresher, wudu or anything, we'll take 10 minutes and we'll try and offer 2 rakats. The idea is not, it has to be very long, but the idea is to try and encompass these or incorporate this kind of feelings. You know, when we're saying takbir, you know, qiyam, pondering over the Quran, in ruku', pondering over what we're saying in the ruku', in the sujood, what we're saying in tashahhud, having this kind of, we're standing in front of Allah, Jannat, Jahannam, Kaaba is in front of us, okay? So let us try and, you know, replicate that. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He can give us tawfiq, and then continue the rest of our lives in developing a salat to become like this, or perhaps even better. Okay? So inshallah, we've got 10 minutes inshallah, and then we'll reassemble, and then I would like to hear from a few of you, your impressions on that inshallah. Subhanaka wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
Inshallah. But if I could get with the brother, in the stuff, I should yes, there's one other thing. I don't know if you're going to do that assignment too, so take your time. Are you going to do that assignment too right now? Or if I could just ask you my one question. It's more about kids. They're going to public high school. So make sure all this is prepared down there. The others they put in high school in 6 years. I go reach out first. I think it's been like this. I save up with everything and go overseas to Pakistan. It's cheaper than other places. And I was looking to Jamia because there's an Arabic medium course. Is there other universities?
Okay, so for that, you couldn't communicate. Okay, very nice to see you. Good. Remember seeing you on. You here?
I'm talking to that information.
Huh?
I'll be here till that information.
So I need to practice myself. Huh? Oh. Yeah.
I'm right back. No, come here. Come here. Mommy, that's what shoes on.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Okay, so who would like to share their experience? Okay.
I shared with you, this is only salah, there's no thing, there's no thought, other than the Allah and His ibadah. With this prayer, when you see Kaaba in front of you, and Jannah on the right and Jahannam on the left, and back is Malak al-Maut, there's no thought other than Allah.
So were you able to do something like that?
We can.
Yeah. What I want is this particular salat that you offered just now. What did you feel in it?
It was 100% like you're dying, Oh, this is the last day.
MashaAllah. So you found this?
Yeah, very beneficial here.
So inshallah,
we'll try
and make this
every salah like this,
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Anyone else? One of the ladies would like to share their experience? Huh? Okay, would you like to tell us a little bit? It's always nice to.
I've never said anyone else like this in my whole life.
Mashallah.
Yeah. It was beautiful, mashallah, and I don't know, I have a very strange feeling, very beautiful feeling, mashallah.
MashaAllah. So inshallah, we'll try and continue like this and make our salat like this. And make dua for me. I also learned to make salat like this.
Inshallah. Yeah, but Allah bless you.
I mean. And keep in mind that, of course, in this environment, myself included, we're all inspired because we've created an environment now, And, so it's kind of, it's easy. We're in the masjid, we've been talking about this, we've been doing dhikr and fikr, and now So when we get back into the, the grind, as it were, so to keep that, state, the Mashayikh al-Akhirah, the ulama al-suluk, they say, أعمل الأعمال أفضل الأعمال حفظ الحال. The best of righteous deeds is to protect your condition. Given that you've reached some condition, like we've reached a condition in our salat now, to protect that. It's not easy, we have to go back outside, we get, bombarded and blasted by all the fitan and all the, things that are distracting us. So to keep that in, that is called mujahada. And it has been rightly called jihad al-akbar. It's a jihad. When we have to fight an enemy, a physical enemy, which happens now and again, so of course that's a huge sacrifice, it's a huge effort. But fighting the nafs, which we can't see, and going against our desires and going against the fashions and the trends and all of that, consistently, minute after minute, hour after hour, that's it. Jihad al-Akbar, because it's consistent, it's always. We always have to be engaged in it. And the good news is, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. And those who make this struggle for the sake of Allah, in the way of Allah, on the pattern of Rasulullah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ultimately open the doors and we will guide them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide them to their destination. And this is what we pray for in every rakat. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, the one dua which is wajib. You don't have to ask Allah to give you wealth and property, and you don't even have to ask for Jannah and Jahannam. You're not going to be called to account, but you have to ask Allah for guidance. And so, what guidance are we asking for? Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. We ask Allah to put us on the path. So being on the path is the objective. Where you will reach, that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's tawfiq. But being on the path is the objective. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us on the path. May He keep us on this path until the akhir al-ramaq, until the very last moment of our existence, and then ultimately join us, with our beloved, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His beloved, His Rasul alayhi salatu wa nabiyyin wa siddiqeen wa shuhada wa salihin wa hasuna ulaika rafiqa. The best of company are they. So jazakumullah khair for attending, and excuse my ignorance and incompetence and inability to serve you all as you should have been, but hopefully some benefit, and there will be some takeaway, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all tawfiq. Ameen. Wa akhir da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And may Allah bless you for the extended time, especially Abdul Rahman, who had to.
Jazakallah khair for pushing through with such a small audience. I appreciate it.
No, this is a big audience.
Thank you very much.
In my place in Pakistan, sometimes I have 2 people.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
I
it.
guess
One person gets it and takes it ahead, and I need it,
Jazakallah khair. Pleasure.
very close.
يهديك الله بك رجلا واحدا خير لك.
See you later.
I will take profusely grateful for you coming out.
No,
The people that came out here. Also shout out to Musbah and the volunteers of the masjid who facilitated this.
Barakallah.
Jazakumullah khair.
May Allah bless you all for hosting us, looking after us,
Very much.
warming up our coffee. Maybe you can do it a second time also.
Second.
Because I still got. Yeah, can you actually warm it up? Is that possible?
So Amran is driving around, isn't it?
Huh?
Amran, are you driving around?
Yeah.
You know what? I ain't cleaning this up. No? I'm going to sleep. I ain't cleaning this up. Okay, yeah, I think that was on camera.
I got it. As I said, actually, this module